The Toronto Raptors lose an absolute heartbreaker to the Chicago Bulls, an Eastern Conference rival that they will surely be battling with for one of those play-in spots or perhaps one of those final playoff spots. And this one hurts. This one hurts a lot. This was probably one of the craziest games I think I've ever witnessed in my life. I've been watching basketball for 25 years, and so much of it is so self-inflicted. I think when the Raptors go back and look at the tape on this, there's going to be a lot of people just tapping their heads saying, I can't believe I did that. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to take your reactions. Calm down, breathe. It's early in the season, but there are some trends that have emerged clearly already, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it at depth. So if you wouldn't mind, please hit the like, subscribe if you haven't already. We're doing this every single night for the rest of the year when the Raptors play. Post-game lives are a thing. And again, link is in the description if you want to call in. We'll take call-ins in about 10 to 15 minutes. All right, let's hit that intro, and I'll see you in a bit. All right, let's towel off. Okay. Wow. I hope you didn't have the Raptors on your parlay bet tonight, because that's something that's going to just break your heart straight, right? We already got 141 comments, and I haven't looked at any of them, but let's get this. OG should get the max. Prayers up that OG is okay, man. This is going to be tough. Rob, that one hurt. We need to go off. We have a super chat here. Hold on, let's get to it. Super chat from John. Thank you so much. I'm tired of Dennis constantly trying to take people to the basket or shoot a mid-range shot in crunch time. Yeah, that's certainly a trend that has come up. And, again, it's a mid-level player. He's not a max-level player. He has a favorable relationship with Darko. They think he can do some stuff. But I think around the 10-game mark, I think the reality will set in for Raptor fans about who this player is. He is inconsistent at times. He hits the big ones. He's a pesky defender. He's a good value grab for what you got. But those people saying, like you got your franchise point guard or something like that, just chill out on that, please. That was on Scottie and Siakam. Yeah, a lot to take in there, man. Facts, Scotty is a goof. Really? You think so? Not a perfect game by any means from Scottie Barnes, but super freaking encouraging. Stop rating OG. He isn't that guy. Well, 2 games in, consistently, I would say he's been pretty much your best player. So, if that's overrating him, then I'm not a fan of Pascal Siakam. You can do a low light film on just Pascal from tonight's game. I'm not going to do a low light film on Pascal, but I will tell you right now that I have a little bit of energy. That game was exhilarating and crazy for all the wrong reasons and right reasons. There's a lot of good and bad to take. I'll definitely take you through my thoughts on it for sure. But I will do a film breakdown for this for sure. It's unfortunate that there won't be enough of a turnaround. So now I'm thinking, should I wait for tomorrow night and then do the first 3 games and then just take the trends, take all the trends and just put it all into one sort of film breakdown? So we'll see if I do that or if I decide to burn the midnight oil. I just ran out of coffee, man. I just ran out of coffee. Like this is the worst timing to run out of coffee. So I'll see. But there's a lot to take away. So let's talk about this game. Okay, first of all, Scottie Barnes, triple-double. It didn't take long this year, right? I mean, saw it coming. And it was a very, very impactful triple-double. And I think that he was a really big part of what went right for the Raptors tonight. And there's a lot of mistakes from him. By no means a perfect game at all. So in terms of the overall game flow, if you will, this game was interesting, right? So the Raptors come out to a breakneck pace start. It looks like they're just going to blow the Bulls out of the building. The team meeting didn't work. And, the defense is suffocating and everything is working on a string. And it's like it was 8-0. And then Billy Donovan calls the timeout. And then it's 16-6. And if you follow Pensar Basketball on Twitter, I straight up have been doing this for 2 straight games now, where I take the other team when Malachi Flynn comes into the game. Doesn't matter who the other team is. Did it last game, did it this game. Easy money, man. Malachi Flynn's making me a lot of money here. So just take the other team when Malachi comes in, cash out when Malachi leaves. That's basically it. And you will rake the profit of about 10% on that bet every single time. And I don't know what the exact stats are, but I'm pretty sure he's around -30 and 3 cents in 2 games, and 2 games that were very close, in which most of the starters were positives. You're starting to understand why Nick Nurse wasn't playing this guy. But also, I think this is the worst I've ever seen him play in my life. Last year there were moments where I was like, Malachi Flynn, he's doing okay. He should get some extension. He should get some extended run. But nothing I've seen in preseason in the first 2 games suggests to me this is a rotation player. I've been harping on this. I'm not going to harp on it any more than I already have right now. But I'm telling you, this is not right. Momentum is a really big thing in the NBA. And the first major momentum swing came in when he and Precious Achiuwa made a string of errors. And look, man, you want to play fast, you want to play 0.5, you need really smart players. You have some smart players on this team. Let's talk about the positives. We'll talk about the positives, we'll talk about the negatives, and that way we can keep ourselves somewhat sequenced and organized in that thought. Positives, the defense. Once again, you hold the team, to a below average shooting percentage. The Bulls shoot 37.4%. The Raptors manage, to be much better in the half court today. They shoot 47%. 3-point shooting is still abysmal, but look at your 3-point shooting defense. I mean, granted, the Bulls are not some great defensive team, but offensive team, but 20.5% from 3. I mean, this is like the Nick Nurse era, right? But this is like Nick Nurse on steroids. Like, this was incredible. You forced 17 turnovers. You win the rebounding battle by just a hair, right? Despite losing Jakob Poeltl, losing Precious Achiuwa to foul trouble. They both foul out. And I just think that this game was lost on the margins and on the decision-making, right? So another positive I think that I could certainly point to is, let's talk about Chris Boucher, man. He didn't play last game. A lot of people wondering, hey, how can you, with your bench lineup struggling, not play this guy? He's pure impact. And in 17 minutes, there's not a single player on this bench who was a positive except for Chris Boucher. And again, I don't want to read too much into plus minus, because the worst plus minus is, Jalen McDaniels, and I don't think he necessarily played a terrible game. I think this is on Darko Rakovic. I really do. His lineups have not been good so far. We're 2 games in, and I have consistently had an issue with his lineups. Maybe with Nurse, I had an issue with guys getting tired, guys playing too many minutes, but I didn't have as many issues with the lineup synergy that Nick Nurse was playing with. I've had constant issues with Darko Rakovic's lineup synergy. It's for about it. I'll tell you, it's about, if you told me this team was tanking, I would believe you, but they don't have a draft pick, so I don't understand. This is self-inflicted. You were clearly good enough to beat the Chicago Bulls tonight. And I'm pretty sure if O.G Anunoby doesn't go out, you probably blow them out the way things were going. Right? But him going out was the momentum shift in this game, because he was carrying your defense in so many ways. He and Scotty were doing so many good things on the defensive end. And look, Malachi Flynn played 4 minutes and was -14 tonight. He did not come in the second half. Therefore, Darko Rakovic has found out, my betting strategy, and he's decided he's going to turn the water off on that. I think he was absolutely horrible. I really do. And, don't call it shade, don't call it hating. I'm calling it what it is. He was terrible on the basketball court. His decision making is slow. Shot making is rough. He's just scared. It's not scared. It's timid. He's timid to make decisions on the basketball court, and you just cannot have that. And you're watching how one guy can single-handedly turn around a game. And, it doesn't help Malachi either that the lineups he's playing with he is being tasked to be a primary decision maker. If you insist on playing Malachi Flynn, you have to play him with Pascal and Scotty. Maybe. You have to play him off of two guys, and you have to play him off the ball, which again negates the point of having a 6-foot guy out there, because why is he playing off the ball? So if you can't play on the ball in the NBA, you can't shoot. You can shoot in theory, but you can't seem to put together a 35% three-point shooting season. And you have issues with running an offense. Like, you're not an NBA point guard, and you're not an NBA shooting guard. What are you? You are probably out of this rotation. I would be very surprised to see him play tomorrow night. But knowing what Darko Rakovic has stubbornly gone to over and over, please believe me that this is not the last you've seen of Malachi Flynn in this rotation. Gary Trent Jr., I think, was an overall positive, but again, -15. Look at the plus minus for the Raptors in this game. Grady Dick, -6. He's one of my positives in the 6 minutes he played, even though he scored 0 points. Gary Trent Jr., -15. Malachi Flynn, -14. Precious Achiuwa and Jalen McDaniels, -22 and -25. What is the one bench player who really sticks out? Chris Boucher. We were calling for Chris Boucher and Otto Porter to play last game. I think this community especially was very much voicing their frustration about those two guys playing, because you nearly choked away the last game and you fully choke away this game. And I have to tell you, once O.G Anunoby went out, if Chris Boucher does not come in and play his guts out, like really play his heart out, and yes, he committed that foul. I don't think that was that is a completely botched call by the referees. DeMar fully went right into him. That should be an offensive foul. And when they do the league review, if they do a review on that, I wonder. Obviously you are dealing with one of the better offensive players in the NBA. He might get the benefit of the doubt. Who are you? Who is he? I get it. And you maybe don't want to close out that out of control. But that being said, a foul's a foul, and the league has been very clear that we are not going to have guys jumping into other guys, and we're going to call that an offensive foul. So I think this was probably, this is one of the crazier games I've seen, but partially it's crazy because the referees just were not good tonight. This was not a well officiated game, in my opinion. There were so many times where, the moving defensive play on Pascal Siakam, which was overturned, which Darko Rakovic challenged. He kicked that out and Boucher hit the three. And that was right when the momentum was turning for the Raptors. They called a charge. Okay, fine. It gets overturned and you don't get a foul on Siakam. You retain possession, but you don't get the 3 points back. You don't keep the momentum. So there's so many times where momentum played such a huge part in this game. Let's continue to talk about the positives. Grady Dick. Oh, man. Okay, look. He missed both of his shots. I realize he hasn't scored in 2 games. And if you're looking at that and you're probably comparing him to some other rookie out there, you're like, oh, we should have picked this guy and that guy. Let me tell you something, man. Rookies make a lot of mistakes. This guy is not making mistakes out there. I'm telling you, you break down his tape, and I'm watching him very intently. He's not making mistakes on the basketball court. He is taking great shots. He's making great passes. They are very accurate. They are very timely. And most importantly, they are to the right freaking person. This is a very frustrating part of this offense, is guys continuously make passes to the wrong person at the wrong time. And it's mind-numbingly stupid that it has been happening for 2 straight years now across 2 different coaching regimes. So if you are Masai Ujiri and this entire coaching shift was to evaluate your roster, to use the word evaluate with Masai Ujiri, then I think you have to really, really evaluate the collective basketball IQ on your team. Now, okay, fine. You have some good teachers now, and Darko Rakovic is certainly going to make an impact on the basketball IQ development of some of your younger players. But, at some point, you have to ask yourself the real question here. If you don't have a feel for the game and you've been a professional basketball player for 3-4 years and you've played through the college ranks, at what point is that just you? At what point is it just that you don't process the game very well? And this is going to go to a larger point. Now, I started on a positive and now I'm ending on a negative. Great. Jalen McDaniels, I think his defense was good again. He went 0 for 4 from 3. Grady went 0 for 2 from 3. These guys are not going to go 0 for 4 and 0 for 2 the entire season. So you just have to keep trusting that they are making decent enough reads and they have good enough feel that eventually the shots are going to go down and they're going to be mega neutral or mega positive for you on that end. But with guys like Flynn and Boucher, the concept is not whether they're having good games or bad games. It's rather they're having the wrong games. And that is very important. Starting lineup, let's talk about that. Jakob Poeltl was fine. Really, he was more than serviceable, and against a big body like Vucevic, you saw once he fouled out, the rebounding, glass opened up really a lot for the Chicago Bulls. I think he was really big and very important in controlling some of the box out assignments. O.G Anunoby, prayers up. I hope he's okay. I don't suspect he will, be missing a ton of time, but the Raptors do have a tough back-to-back tomorrow, and maybe it's a blessing in disguise that he doesn't play the end of the game tonight, so he's fresh for tomorrow. But if he doesn't play tomorrow, this team is in trouble, right? Because as much as you can say OG is not processing the game at a very elite or very speedy level offensively right now, on defense, he is a beautiful mind. He is like playing 200 IQ defensive basketball. It's impressive. It's a clinic to any young hoopers out there. You want to learn how to play defense, go study OG Anunoby tape. It's perfect. It's perfection basketball. I mean, he has gone back-to-back nights, Zach LaVine and Anthony Edwards, and has made them basically look like scrubs. This is not easy. These are very, very talented players. They're all-stars. And what this guy is doing is a defensive masterclass. He's not doing it alone, of course. There are four very competent defenders flanking him, but he is by far the head of the snake when it comes to the Raptors defense. Now to Scottie Barnes. The good and the bad of Scotty, and then we'll swing into the players that I think, were kind of like issues for the Raptors tonight. The good. The decision-making overall was like the presence on the basketball court, the intention, the focus on winning. Like, he wanted this game so badly. Like, you could feel like he was screaming. Guys missed box out assignments. He was like literally yelling at them in a good way. Like, he's motivating them. He's telling them where to be. Guys are missing defensive rotations. That three that Alex Caruso hit, Scotty called it. Scotty called that three as they were coming down the court. He knew that Caruso was going, and he pointed to Caruso, and nobody rotated out. And by the time they rotated out, it was wide open. It was too late. This is a guy who's just seeing the game at a very different level. Now, what's interesting is he's seeing things, but his body is not doing the things that he is seeing. And I would love for him to just stop second guessing his first instincts. His first instincts are always right. His first instincts are great. It's his second instinct and third instinct are what he's reacting to, the reaction that is wrong. There were at least 3 to 4 times tonight where he threw a pass that, whether it went through or not, it could have been an errant turnover, or it could have been, a converted basket. It was just the wrong pass. It's the wrong pass. It's the wrong momentum on the pass. On a fast break, you don't, like, I think it brought it up last time. There was a fast break where the ball bounced twice, and Alvin Williams was criticizing you can't let the ball bounce twice on a fast break. That's absolutely true. You cannot, because it allows the defense to catch up. Anytime you throw a pass that gives the defense an advantage, you have thrown the wrong pass. If you throw the pass to a bad decision maker, you've given the defense an advantage. If you throw a pass off target and your offensive team and your teammate on offense has to waste a second to gather your pass, then you have screwed up. If you pass the ball when you have an advantage as an offensive team, when you have an advantage and you pass the ball to somebody who is in a position where they cannot score, then you have allowed the defense to catch up, because that 1 second is all NBA defenders need to catch up. And so really this entire process of, offense, of what Darko was talking about, 0.5, is to imagine it like a scale from 0 to 100. And you want to shoot at 100, right? So let's pretend that we have a sample play where Pascal Siakam's wide open underneath the basket. Simply giving him the ball is 100. You're right there. It's 100. But let's say there's no defensive collapse and there's no defensive breakdown. Well, now you need to create that collapse. You need to create the breakdown. And so Dennis Schroeder has a step ahead of his guy, and Precious Achiuwa cuts backdoor. Dennis throws a pass that's off target, right? Now, right there, before he throws the pass, at the moment of the ball leaving his hands, you're at 90, because this is a simple play. Boom, dunk, Precious Achiuwa. The minute you throw it off target, you turn the 90 into a 40 or a 30, because now he's going to have to gather it He's not going to be able to catch up. And by the time he gathers it, 2 defenders will swarm him in the paint. He is a terrible decision maker when he's crowded. He's probably going to turn it over or throw up an errant layup, and you suddenly turned a 100% basket with one small tweak. You could have turned it into a basket, but because you throw it high, because you're not that dynamic a passer, you're not that great a decision maker, you make that mistake. This is pretty much the tail of the tape on Pascal Siakam and Dennis Schroeder tonight. Just really bad decision making throughout, right? So overall, Scotty, I think good game. The box score says good game. I think when he studies the tape on this one, he'll see those 7 turnovers, and he'll definitely think, okay, like 3 of those 100% my fault. 2 of those definitely somebody else's fault, and 2 of those were like 50-50. They're going to happen every single game when you handle the ball this much. The Bulls put a lot of pressure on him. I think he handled it reasonably well. I think if you're being honest, a 6'9", 6'10" guy who's not the greatest ball handler, but is definitely a point guard. Let me clarify that. But his handle is still a work in progress. For him to be able to handle the pressure from guys like Javon Carter, who's very small and right in his grill, and Alex Caruso, and to be able to take Alex Caruso and just do a turnaround like that, he was absolutely the best part of the game for me tonight. And it's not just because I'm a big Scotty fan. It's not because he played a perfect game. It's just because you're now seeing, how far he can take this. Because if you can do this to Alex Caruso and you can do this to guys, to a team like this, certainly, I shudder to think what you'll do against the Charlottes. I mean, granted, Scotty's not exactly one who picks on the worst teams, but most teams are not this equipped to deal on the point of attack. Most teams are going to be having guys like Damian Lillard up on you, and then it's just curtains, right? What I would like for him to do is be more aggressive. I know he took more shots than he's used to taking last year. He took 14 shots. I think he should have taken 25 shots tonight, easily. They had Kobe White on him a ton of times in the post. I mean, quicker decision making. Just go right. Like, it's too slow. Everything's going too slow for him right now. He needs to pick it up. But at the same time, in terms of, his just overall running the fast break, I mean, this has been the only good part of the Raptors offense, and it's all him. It's all him. I promise you. Yes, it helps when you have guys like Chris Boucher running instead of Jakob Poeltl, or it helps when you have Gary spacing instead of Malachi Flynn. But overall, he's creating all of those advantages in transition. And for the Raptors, when you don't have him on the court and you find transition because you're so good defensively, you're going to end up in transition anyway. It's staggering to see last year and this year how often this team screws up a 3-on-1 or a 3-on-2 advantage. It's insane. Okay. Overall, just again, Pascal Siakam in the clutch. Someone send me Darko Rakovic's fax machine, fax number, please. I need to fax this guy. Has Pascal's clutch stats for the last 3 years. He is not a clutch player. Okay, you hand him the ball in 2 clutch moments. Okay, one to inbound, and he throws the ball errantly, totally off target. Scotty can barely hold on to it. He loses it, which gives the free throws, right? Or he gives the Bulls the advantage. Then you put the ball in his hands, and he's not your best decision maker, and he's not your best closer. There are 2 closers on your team. I mean, actually, I think Dennis Schroeder is really clutch. So you have Dennis Schroeder, who's pretty clutch. You have Gary Trent Jr., whose clutch percentages are pretty awesome. Granted, O.G Anunoby is in the bench. Scottie Barnes was incredible in the clutch last year. He may not be able to do the perfect thing, but he's not going to airball, bro. And look, when you begin to coach a team, I understand you need to establish new chances for people. You say last year is last year, and we're going to try over. So Malachi Flynn, fresh start. Pascal Siakam, fresh start. Bro, these guys are exactly who they were last year. You're not Magic Man. You're not Houdini. You are not a clairvoyant. I don't know. You're not God. You cannot change bad, 4 years straight of terrible clutch performances, clutch percentages, missing air balls. I go and study Pensar Basketball's video archive, bro. Pascal Siakam in the 4th quarter, this is a thing, okay? It has been a thing for 4 years. I'm not trying to shit on the guy. I really don't think he had a terrible game today, but this is on coach, dude. This is on you, man. This is Darko Rakovic. If someone clips this for you, bro, this is on you. You got to be better. You got to be better with your lineups. You got to be better with your rotations. You got to be better with your timeouts. That first run that they went on, which allowed them to catch up the game, this entire pattern That's on you. You got to call a timeout. You got to give Malachi the quick hook. Yeah, he played 4 minutes. That's 2 minutes too long. And you lost 4, 5, 6 points in those 2 minutes that you didn't hook him. 6 points in a game this low scoring, which prior to overtime was a 90-point game, like 93, 94, 93, 93. I think it was at overtime. Dude, 6 points, 12 points, 14 points that you gave up in that Malachi. That is like 18% of the points scored, 17% of the points scored in the entire game, right? Like 14 points is 16% of the points scored in the entire game. We're giving up in the 4 minutes Malachi's on the court. I understand giving people chances. I understand, fresh start, new vibes, etc. But people are who they are. And at the end of the day, the best indication of future behavior is past behavior. You cannot expect people to just become radically different people. Okay. Jesus, game. On a personal note, so I keep saying I don't condone betting, and then I keep doing some sports betting. I'm not proud of it. This is not something that I really condone or hope on anybody else or whatever. But I did a lot of studying this off season in preparation for this season. So I thought that I had a bit of an edge. Maybe I'm being ridiculous, but I think I have a bit of an edge when it comes to gambling right now or betting on teams. And I had 9 bets tonight. 9. I hit every single one. And there were 5 parlay bets, which all had the Raptors involved. So it was like the Raptors plus this team, this team, this team, this team, all win. And I'm just seeing all check marks. Check mark, check mark, check mark, check mark. Raptors pending, Raptors pending, Raptors pending. And I'm just like, okay, if the Raptors win, I've hit like God mode in terms of sports betting. Like, you cannot imagine assuming that you're going to have 3 different 7-leg parlays and they're all going to hit. This is really some serious freaking luck. Okay. I cashed out of every one of those bets. So, and then, I'm having a heart attack as I'm going through because the cash out value was like almost half of what was going to be valued because the Bulls are at home. O.G Anunoby is out. But right when overtime started, I cashed out of every single one of those bets. And I'm very happy I did. This is not a team that has performed well in back-to-back games, closing out games. In the last game, they almost completely... It seems like when they get a lead, and they've had a lead in both fourth quarters, and a commanding lead in both fourth quarters, it seems that when they get ahead, they stop being aggressive, and they start doing this weird thing where they're trying to run the clock out. And it usually results in really bad offense. And so my biggest, critique of this is stop doing that. When you're up 6, your goal should be up 10. Your goal should go up 10 because you've built a momentum. And all you're doing by trying to run out the clock and, pray that the game just ends. And I understand there are some games like that where you just have to do that. And usually that's when you have a superstar on the other side and you're just like, okay, if I take 23 full seconds, that's one less attempt that I have to deal with this guy who's just killing us. But nobody was killing you. This game is pure self-inflicted wounds. I promise. This is 100%. This game was lost by the Raptors. They did this to themselves. And the Bulls gave them every freaking chance in the book, right? DeMar DeRozan, karma for everything that DeMar DeRozan did to the Raptors in the play-in. He missed 3 free throws down the line. He's a very good free throw shooter. That you cannot. I don't think you would have taken 101 bet that he was going to miss 3 of those. It's crazy. This entire game was crazy. And, to that final, the final 2 free throws that he did hit, was it 2 free throws he hit or one of them he hit? The foul on Scotty and OG. Honestly, man, sorry, it was Scotty and Pascal where they jumped into him. That one, easily self-inflicted. Like, I just don't think he's a good player, but you gave him too much respect. He's not Kobe Bryant. He's not Michael Jordan. You gave him way too much respect. And granted, Zach LaVine didn't have it going, but anyways, we have 2 callers, M and Jesse, YVR. Again, the lines are open. And if you would like to call in, I'm going to put the link in the description. Oh, it's not here. The link is in the description. So please do call in. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. Let me just respond really quickly to the super chats. Whoa, got a big one here. John Lemg, please let's not get upset at Pascal's last 2 possessions, the turnover in the late shot clock after the buzzer. These types of plays are expected of him in the crunch time, so I can get mad if I know what's already going to happen. Well, here's the question, John. Why does he have the ball if you know it's going to happen? Do you know, I was watching the last 2 minutes with my girlfriend. I told her to come over. I was like, yo, like, watch these last 2 minutes. Like, this might be one of the craziest games in NBA history. Just watch it. And they put the ball in Pascal Siakam's hands. And I don't know if it's because she's watched some of my content before or she listened to me speak last year. She was like, why are they giving him the ball? He doesn't do well in these situations. I'm like, bro, you don't even understand basketball and you know this. How does the coach not know this? Like, you putting someone to fail. It's all politics, man. He's our max guy. He's our guy. He got it. No, he doesn't have it going. He doesn't have like some sort of crazy momentum. I understand like the 52-point game where, you know, at the Madison, he had it going. He had a feel for it. He had a favorable advantage, matchup, whatever. Sorry, Torrey Craig, you don't have an advantage over that guy at all. Like, you just don't. Like, you should in theory, and maybe you do in your mind. And maybe you do on paper if a casual fan's like, oh, Pascal Siakam against Torrey Craig. I'm telling you, man, that guy can defend, right? Against him and Caruso, you need Barnes. Like, you need Scotty to do something. And sure, there's a segment of this fan base that's like, I don't feel that comfortable putting the ball in Scotty Barnes' hand either. Then put it in Gary Trent's hand, right? Put it in Gary's hands. Put it in Dennis's hands. I'm done with Pascal Siakam clutch shit. I'm done. I'm done with 2 things. Sorry, I'm done with 3 things. No, I'm done with 2 things. I'll wait to be done with the 3rd thing. I am done with Malachi Flynn minutes for this season. I don't want to see him again on the court unless unless 9 guys are injured. I need him to stay on the bench. This is crazy. Unless you're playing him against the Charlotte Hornets and you're up 25 in the 4th quarter. And even then, I'm worried. If you put him in and there's 8 minutes in the game and you're up 25 and you put him in, I'm very worried that you might actually lose that game. That's how bad it is. Okay, this is mental toughness. And I am done with Pascal Siakam taking clutch shots for this team for the rest of my life. Like, it's not just, look, commendable game, not shitting on the guy. It's just not him. You can't keep putting someone in a position that they have shown you time and time again they are not good at it. Less clumsy forwards, more decent guard play. Yo, Scotty was your only point guard tonight. Someone tweeted at me tonight, like, oh, look how Torrey Craig clamped him. You know, it's a sign that he's not a point guard. I think Lane said that. Bro, he is a point guard. His handle needs to develop for sure, but he sees the game like a point guard. He's directing. Okay, fine. You know, what do you want to call him? Point center, point forward, whatever. He's your lead decision maker. He has to be. He's like the one guy who can really do it. Okay. We're going to try to keep calls to about 5 minutes, 5-6 minutes if we can. Let's bring on M. M, how are you, man?
I'm good, Robert. How are you?
I'm all right.
This was a crazy game, and I've not called in since the play-in game.
Okay.
And there's a specific question that I'm very curious as to your thoughts on.
Sure.
Why doesn't Otto get minutes?
There's a very good chance that he's still ramping up from, being injured, or they just don't want to play him, or there's a plan in place, to help him get into shape. Like, he got some minutes, I think in the last preseason game, but there's certainly some thought process to, I haven't seen his medical records. I don't know the training staff, what their thoughts are on it, but there are some differences between preseason action, practice action, and NBA game time action, right? So if you have this idea of like, hey, like, we want to give him like a week before we do this, maybe you use him tomorrow on a back-to-back. If OG is out, you might have to use him. But yeah, no, he solves so many issues, from the spacing to the decision making to the IQ to the defense. I'm very, very confident in saying that he's one of your top 5 players, and he's not playing for you.
For sure. Yeah. And credit to Darko for realizing that putting Malachi Flynn in and him being the biggest negative on your team led to him not playing anymore after that little run that he got.
He didn't see enough in preseason. It happened in preseason. He didn't see enough. Like, I can confirm for a fact that Darko Rakovic is not watching Pensari basketball, which is sad. I mean, bro, support your countrymen. We're from the same country. We're from the same city. You should listen to me about some stuff. I'm just kidding. Darko Rakovic has forgotten more about basketball than I will probably ever know, but we all have blind spots, and I think this is one of his big ones. He played him tonight. He was terrible he was terrible 2 nights ago as well. Maybe this is the end. Hopefully, this is the end. I understand giving a guy a chance. You drafted him. Okay, I understand he's an asset. He makes over $4 million. Fine. You waive Jeff Doughton. I'm not going to cry over that anymore. But at the end of the day, it's $4 million. You know what I mean? Like league salary is like 160. This is not a big contract. This is not like, oh, we have a max guy on our bench. We have to boost his trade value. At best, like I say, like at best, as in like if he comes out and he starts blistering, threes, and you will raise his value from you have to add a second pick to you might get a 2029 second pick to get him. That's the swing, right? At the end of the day, teams are not like dying to fill their roster with inefficient 6-foot guards who can't defend. This is like the least important playoff. This is the least important position. This might be less important a position than a lumbering center. Nobody cares. Yeah.
No, I definitely agree with that take. And ideally, he doesn't come in at all. But the fact that he didn't come in the second half or for a second stint in the game, I think it speaks a lot to what's to come.
Let us pray. Yeah. All right. Any final thoughts?
Looking forward to the next game, and hopefully they can get some more unbiased refereeing.
Yeah, that would be absolutely phenomenal. All right. Thanks a lot for calling in, Em. Really appreciate it. Cheers. All right. We got Jesse YVR. Jesse, what's going on?
Doing good, man. How are you doing today?
Are you still feeling super optimistic like you were a few days ago?
That was
optimistic.
That was all lulz. That was just for the gram. It's totally fine. I'm a more
For the
even
gram?
keel for my gram. But like the whole thing for me right now with this team is, hey, I love what we have at the very, very core. And if that core is just Scotty Barnes, then I'm good. But unfortunately, it's not.
You cannot
So we've
build a
got
team with one player unless that one player is Michael Jordan. And Scotty Barnes is not Michael Jordan.
And he won't be. And that's totally fine. He is who he is, and he's a great player, and I love him to death. What I wanted to talk to you about today was I'm glad that we brought forward that conversation about basketball IQ, and I think that's going to end up being a theme of the season. But
Please, God, let it not be.
I hope it's not. But the Raptors themselves, I was just doing some quick research earlier today for my work about player tracking in sports, and the advent of player tracking in the NBA. How the Raptors were one of the first teams to ever adopt the full spectrum analysis of the camera works, putting them in the arenas, in the practice facility, and how they have been at the forefront of data analytics and player tracking, and not only just for cameras, but wearables as well. So we're looking at a team that has the most experience at data, the most experience with data analytics, and with player tracking and player movement, and yet somehow can't figure out how to use that data effectively.
That's ironic, isn't it?
It's actually so wild that we cannot figure it out right now.
So there's the thing. I think the Raptors are card counters, right? They have a very analytical mind towards things, and I can empathize with that. I certainly can relate to thinking of the world as numbers and dots, right? I've been accused of that, like in my early 20s, to be like, you think more like an algorithm than a person sometimes. So I understand why you would take a swing on someone like a Jalen McDaniels. I understand why the upside of Precious Achiuwa, because of, again, the analytics on how he moves. This is the analytics that are not available to the public on really the sports science and the way that he can cover space on a basketball court. If he could ever figure out which way to go or how to go or when to go or when not to go. If you could train that into him. And so the problem then is, what's your blind spot? Because algorithms have blind spots. I just had the chess.com engine tell me that a move was a blunder when it was clearly the right move. Every algorithm has blind spots. Computers are not perfect, right? So I think if you're looking at the Raptors data model, and I think the one blind spot has been what you're talking about: basketball intelligence and IQ, understanding feel. Scotty Barnes knew that shot was going to be taken by Alex Caruso before every player on his team.
Mm-hmm.
That's feel. That's understanding how players move, how players look right before they're primed to take the shot. They know their pet play. Now, if you're reading this game like LeBron or Draymond, you knew that Alex Caruso was going to take that shot when he got off the bus, right? That's a different level. But for Precious Achiuwa or Pascal Siakam, there's so much effort issues towards the end, and I think maybe it's just fatigue. You're running.
And I think it's a part of the fatigue, and it's also when we were talking about the Alex Caruso shot and how Scotty saw that. The other one that really stood out to me was on the final shot by Siakam, where we see Scotty sitting with a wide open three, both hands high in the air.
Did you see Gary Trent open?
Screaming and pointing at the corner for the wide. What would have happened is he got the ball, 0.5, pass it off. It would have been a beautiful wide open shot by a very good. And like we were saying, we had Schroeder on the floor, we had Gary Trent on the floor, we had him on the floor. That was two options that he could have picked out for either a cut to the basket for the easy 2 or for the 3 to win.
Did you end up watching the last live when we answered your question and we had the callers, sort of go in and say who their basketball IQ top 5 would be?
I loved it. It was beautiful.
Great. And you noticed Pascal Siakam didn't make a lot of those lists unless it was Andres, and he shouldn't, because he's not.
He can't.
And that's the thing. It's all processing speed. And this is what I complained about all last year. He doesn't see the game the way you need someone to see the game from the center. And look, it's like this. There's two things here. Number one, yes, we agree that with the ball, it becomes far more important that you see the floor well.
Mm-hmm.
But in the center of the court with the ball, it becomes even more relevant that you see the game well. The reason I say this, the center of the court is the most vulnerable place on the court. Apart from the corner baseline, where the sideline and the baseline are 2 additional defenders, that's the most vulnerable place on the court. But the absolute center of the court is the most vulnerable place because the defense can technically attack you from both sides. However, the most vulnerable place for the defense is also a really great decision maker in the center of the court, because it can actually shred you from the center as well. Which is why you often see Nikola Jokic not operating from the corner of the 3-point arc, because that's not an advantageous position to play make for your teammates. It's not that you can't play make from there. Of course you can play make from there. Your angles are limited, though, by the baseline and sideline. So putting Pascal Siakam in the center of this offense, which is a old Nick Nurse trait, and it continued right through. So now I'm wondering why. It's two coaches. Is this, change it? Because it's one thing
to deferring. Is it the players deferring to Pascal in these moments?
I think the Raptors need to have a players only meeting, and they need to hash it out, and they need to have a real discussion about whose team this is in these high leverage moments. I see Scotty deferring to Dennis Schroeder. It's his first instinct to do it. It's almost like he has to override his instinct. And maybe there's some feeling of, I don't want to step on a guy's toes. He's obviously, dark. My coach really believes in this guy. He just won a world championship. He's smaller. I don't want to override him, I don't want to rub him the wrong way. But at the same time, I'm sure Scotty's in these film sessions watching the same tape I'm watching. The offense is running best with him having the ball in the center of the court. This is everything we talked about last year. Brian talked about it on Yahoo Sports. I talked about it ad nauseum last year. You need to put your best decision makers in scoring positions. And scoring positions are when he has space to drive on an attack, collapse. How many times did the Bulls double him tonight?
They doubled him when they doubled him or brought the blitz in. One of the things that I really appreciate about how quickly Scotty thinks is that he brought that double team to himself, first of all.
Exactly.
He brings the double team. He waits for it. I think the best example actually was the Kobe White and I think it was Vukovic when he came in for the double. And
Yes.
Kobe comes in underneath. Scotty waits. Quick pass out. Gary hits the three.
And that's exactly it. He waits. He
Mhm.
waits, and then he finds the right guy. Whereas the other guys are just trying to stay afloat. With Achua, it's like, let me see what they're all playing chess at like an 800 level. And Scotty's like playing at a 2000 level. The gap is not even close. He's waiting for you to commit, and he's waiting for his guy to make the correct read as well. And that's not happening either. So it must be so frustrating for him because on the one hand, like the defense is coming fast at him, and the other player has to correctly react to that as well in order to give him A, an angle, and B, themselves a chance to score. And again, there are some players who just consistently do this wrong. Some players who consistently do this right. Gary Trent does this right. Off the ball, I like it. O.G Anunoby, I like it. Off the ball. On the ball, not so much. Grady Dick, on the ball, off the ball, love it. Love it. So if I could run a team tomorrow with Otto, Grady, Scotty, OG, and Yak, brilliant. Freaking brilliant team. It won't be perfect. Yeah, they'll have a talent deficit every single night that they play on the basketball court, but it would be brilliant basketball.
It would be beautiful basketball to watch as well, because I think the things that I was watching from Grady when I was watching this summer, and even in these first two games in his limited minutes, is he loves to find the gap in between the defense, not to get to his spot, but to move players so that other people can also get to their spot. And that is a trait that we don't see from a lot of teams or a lot of players. This is something that the Warriors at their heyday were amazing at doing, is having Clay and Steph both moving, not to just get to their spots, but to move the defense around to create opportunities for Draymond, for Looney, for Andre Iguodala, right? Those were what we're seeing. The Raptors in the last 3 seasons, which it boggles my mind. You are a professional NBA player, and you don't move. You just wait.
Did you play basketball?
Waiting for something. Did I play basketball? No. Unfortunately, I was never talented enough to play on an organized team. But I love basketball. I love watching basketball. I love studying basketball.
That's awesome, man.
So it's one of those things where like you see our players you see Gary moving, you'll see OG bully a man out of the way to create space for another player. And you'll see Scotty just waiting for all the time, waiting for Siakam to try and do something where Siakam just pulls himself back way past the 3-point line, pass me the ball so I can dribble for 5 seconds into 4 players and turn the ball over.
Yeah. No, it's sometimes it's the quality of the attempt that counts, right? It's again, like, we talked about algorithms and sports tracking and all that stuff. I think like for human beings on the basketball court, especially those with the basketball, you also have to make calculated gambles, right? And sometimes you are going to risk having a turnover, but the turnover, if goes the other way, is like minimum advantage for the offense because it'll be it won't be a live ball turnover, and it won't be you have proper positioning to get back on defense. Like all of these calculations have to be made rapid speed, right? So let's say Scotty is in the corner and he's trapped, right? And there's 2 options. Number 1, pass to a not so great 3-point shooter and knowing that he has 3 seconds on the clock, or throw an attempt at an alley-oop to Pascal Siakam, right? Who may or may not catch it. You have to make the decision on what the odds are of those 2 things converting into a basket. You have to make the decision on what happens if there is a turnover. What's the floor balance? Who's at the top right now? Is your weakest defender is a Kem Birch, who's super slow-footed at the top, or an Aaron Baines type of defender at the top? And granted, the Raptors don't have a lot of those defenders, so this is one of the things that they sliced out of the equation. Do you have the proper floor balance to recover if this is an issue? Do you have proper offensive rebounding position if the shooter you're passing to, who you're forcing to take a shot against the clock from the place on the court that he's standing, is that his weak side, or is that the side, is, left side, right side? There are some guys who do shoot really well from the left, some guys shoot really well from the right. Is that his best side or worst side? You have to make every one of those calculations that I just talked about as two guys who are NBA athletes are blitzing you against the sideline.
Yeah.
More often than not, he makes a good calculation. A couple of times tonight, I did not like the way his body reacted to it. So he threw a pass, and it's just soft. It's a soft pass. And I'm like, he can throw that better. And then he followed that up. It was 2 possessions in a row. And then he followed it up with a pass to like the 3rd row. And I'm just like, dude, like, this is just lapse of concentration. He needs to be better. He knows it. He's stamping his foot. The only thing I'll tell you about Scotty that is encouraging, he's a young player, number 1. Number 2, every mistake I have seen him make, defensively or offensively, almost always he acknowledges it right away. When he makes a when you make a stupid move and he's on your team, he'll tell you about it. But when he makes a move, there's always like a foot stomp or he knows. And
he works on it.
Yes, he does. And so look, like, this is just the beginning. Like people who are probably saying like this video is an overreaction. He is him. Come on, Raptors lost. He had 7 turnovers. He nearly had a quadruple double. If he had 3 more turnovers, he'd have a quadruple double. Look, I think people need to realize neither this game nor the first game was a good game for Scotty. Okay, I just want to be clear about that. These were not good games for Scotty. He is capable of so much more than this. And yet in those 2 games, he has a triple double, a 22-point triple double on efficient shooting, and he has a 5 block game with 2 steals and some crazy box score. If this is your bad game, this is the important part of basketball that people don't seem to realize. What do your bad games look like? Are your bad games 8 points, 6 fouls, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, bad shooting? Is that your bad game? Or is your bad game like a LeBron bad game, where it's like 22 points on 47% shooting and 6 assists and 9 rebounds? Is that a bad game? Because for most people, that's the best game they've ever played in their life. That's the difference. You need to raise the floor on what your bad games look like. I think he has. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think he's really put the floor here. And then he kept, first year was there, rookie year, second year kind of stayed the same. But now
I don't think last year the floor was high. The floor was like, look, last year, full disclosure, you might get a 0.2 rebound, 4 assist game from him. That was a bad game for him last year. When you do the law of averages out at the end of the year, your bad games and your good games and your neutral games have to average out to what the hell you are as a player, right? So if these are the bad games, what do those averages look like on the good games? Because these were both good defenses. You're being tested very early here. There's not I'm not suggesting the Bulls, I have them finishing outside the playoffs, but they're not a bad team. There really aren't that many bad teams. You might be lucky to face some injury-prone teams, or maybe you'll face some tanking teams later in the year. Once teams decide that, okay, like, we're not going to make the playoffs, let's rest some guys, let's sit some guys, then you might catch some teams at the back end. But right now, everyone's optimistic. Everyone thinks they're going to make the playoffs, and you're facing teams that are very much fighting for their playoff lives right now. Because it's like, this is the type of season where an 0-6 start and your season's over.
Done. You're done.
Because you're not good enough to make up the gap. So everyone knows that. I think every coaching staff knows that. Every organization knows that. And I think that maybe the Raptors know that as well. That whereas maybe in previous years, teams might panic around the trade deadline, I think this time teams might panic actually maybe in November.
I think they're going to be panicking hard by the midseason tournament. It's going to be...
That is November. I think that's end of November.
End of November. Yeah. So like, I'll leave you this with just one last thing here, just for everyone to kind of consider moving forward. When you adopt something as dynamic as a 0.5 offense, we really need to think about 2 things. Do you have the players who can do it?
We do not.
And
there's nothing to think about here. We do not.
The will to see it through to completion. So the way I think about
Well,
it is
if
the
you don't
Phoenix
have the
Suns.
players and you have the will, what does it matter? What does it matter?
What I mean is the will to get, like, so if as an organization, not just the players on the floor, but the organization as a whole. So are you willing to make those sacrifices and get rid of the people that can't do it, and then bring in the people who can?
Right.
Or like the Phoenix Suns, when they went with Mike D'Antoni and did the 7 seconds or less, they got rid of everyone who was not part of that plan. If you weren't part of this plan, if you couldn't do it, you proved you couldn't do it, you were off the team. If you could, they brought them in.
But then they traded for Shaq. So
And they traded for Shaq, and D'Antoni was like, I'm out.
yeah. All right. Peace, man. Thanks a lot, Jesse,
Right.
for calling
Have a
in.
good one.
Always a great conversation. Cheers, man. All right. Christian, Coach Mo, Maroon Prince. You got 3 incredibly smart callers at the same time. Love it. How you guys doing?
Oh, man.
Loaded question.
It's a loaded question. I'm sorry. Shit.
I'm just upset because we lost that game. The game was ours. Like, it's so, like...
I agree. That sucked.
Like, Chicago's one of the teams you're supposed to beat. Like, this is one of the teams you're supposed to beat.
They're at home. They're healthy. You lost OG. Refs were biased. In my opinion, refs were very uneven tonight. I can make some excuses that I think I could sleep on it. Like, if Raptor fans want to sleep on this tonight and not completely disastrously lose hope in their team, I would say 3 things. Number 1, you didn't have a good game. Like, you didn't have a good game. You're still working out rotations, etc. Malachi was absolutely horrible. I don't think anyone had a great game for the Raptors.
No.
I really don't. And that's the crazy thing. That's what I was talking about with Jesse. It's like, bro, you having a triple-double and it's not a good game? Like, am I crazy, or does Scotty not have a good game?
I don't know.
He has good intervals. He has like good 4-minute stretches.
Right. But overall,
No.
if you watch this whole game, you wouldn't say he had a good game. And that's the crazy thing, bro. Like, last year on the heels of all those 0.6, if he put up a game like this, people would anoint him LeBron. The bar has been risen, Mr. Barnes. All right. I'm proud. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of him for his bad game today, because it wasn't all bad, as you're saying. There's good intervals. The intention was all there. Great intention, great focus, great effort. But
he has these moments. It's like, I don't know if it's not a lack of IQ. It's like, I don't know if he gets too excited. Like, I remember there's the one play where I think it's right after, like, Boucher gets pump faked for the 3 by DeRozan, and then whatever, DeRozan missed the 3, and then somehow the Bulls get the ball back, and then, like, I think Siakam's playing one-on-one defense with DeRozan, whatever. DeRozan does
He jumps.
Yeah, he does his spin move, and then, like, Siakam actually stays on his feet, but then but Barnes comes out of nowhere, like, and just dumps into DeRozan. And I'm like, what? Like, was he just too excited in those moments? Like, that was like, I was so confused. It's like, it was right after, like, Boucher did
the same thing. Yeah,
did the same thing. So I'm like, what's going on here? Like,
who did they call that foul on?
Barnes.
Oh,
Barnes just crashed into him. It was the obvious foul.
Save the game though, potentially, because maybe DeMar makes that shot.
Yeah, that's
potential. Yeah, I guess so. That's a possibility.
But I think we have to consider that that's always going to be losing play, regardless of what happens with the free throws and whatever. Now you're just blindly waiting on luck. He's not a bad free throw shooter. You're not fouling Andre Drummond, so it's going to be. I agree. It's a bad play. That being said, these are things you learn from.
Yeah.
Like when you're young, like the thing with guys like Grady and guys like Scotty is they just don't have the NBA reps right yet. Like you really have to put in the hours in the NBA to play against these teams.
That's true.
And I think one thing that I'm waiting for on Scotty, and I hope that he picks it up at some point, and I don't know if he does it already, and I'm sure I'm going to ask Brian about it when we do our mid-season review interview on it on Scotty. But I want to ask how deeply he's studying tape on his opponents. Right? I want to know how studious and how insane are you about it. He was asked about it. He's like, do you study tape? And he's like, well, I watch a lot of basketball, which I don't doubt. But are you studying tape the way Kobe studied tape? Because in order for you to become like as great as I know he wants to be great. He wants to be one of the greatest players in the world. I hope
I'm not saying that he doesn't. I'm saying I hope that he knows that part of being great defensively and offensively is you have to become obsessed with tape. Obsessed. Like watching and especially your bad games. You have to break down your bad games like for 7 hours. It is important. It is so important.
Well, he certainly has 7 hours worth of material in this game. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the film session tomorrow will be interesting. I don't know how much turnaround time they're going to have because it's a back-to-back, and this is the crazy part of the NBA season is you can't teach that much, right? You just don't have time for the practices, and that's the very frustrating part because this is the type of game where you wish you had 2 days after it to just show them because everything wrong with this team was on display tonight.
Some of those guys you can't teach anything. You can't teach them a lick.
I believe that
Chris Boucher shouldn't be.
You're not teaching.
I don't believe that.
You're not teaching Achua anything. I'm sorry. This is his 4th season. I mean, it's pathetic. Like,
this is Chris
his
Boucher's
IQ,
8th.
it's as low as it gets. I love the guy, but my goodness, he just came in, mistake, and
Drop the ball, miss the shot.
You have to like split certain. That lineup, the lineup that Darko went with when it was Flynn, Gary, McDaniels, and Achua, you can't have those 4 people on the court at the same time, and then have Scotty.
So who is that on? I mean, if you've been around, I mean, you are telling me this from the comfort of your couch or your computer screen. Darko Rakovic has had deep conversations with Precious Achua, and you're telling me he's probably studied his tape. He coached against him for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
He's prepared scouting reports on this guy. Every scouting report on Precious Achua is that he is a low IQ player who makes rush decisions. If you crowd him, he will absolutely panic.
I'm not saying don't play him.
I'm saying who is it on? At this point, you have what you have.
Yeah.
You don't have Kyle Anderson.
You
have
foul trouble as well. So
okay, play Chris Boucher then.
That's mainly why Boucher.
Or play Otto. I would much rather play Otto at the 5.
But
at this point, even Thad, right? Because
or
you know what to expect.
Well, I mean, with Thaddeus Young, you know, like if he gives up a couple of offensive rebounds, then people are going to be like, "Why didn't you play Precious?" And then you know what I mean. Like if Otto gets injured, you might be like, "Well, why did you let a guy sit for 2.5 hours and then throw them into the game cold?"
Otto's just not ready. Like that, I have to think that's the only reason he's not playing. Like he's just
certainly it's not because he's been beat out for the role. You know, and once again, like I'm not going to beat this Jeff out and drum every single live, but like what minutes could you have gotten from a guy like Jeff tonight?
You're not doing him any favors anymore playing him. It's ugly. You're not even doing him any favors at this point.
Bro, at this point, I feel like any general manager who wants to watch the last 2 tapes,
I think he's out the rotation now. Yes,
Malachi?
Yeah, he has to be now. 4 minutes.
But if you're going to
bet my money he's not
with 3 starters, like you can't have him.
He's
like
not
that lineup. These hockey shift changes. Like you need 2 quality starters on the court. Like
they're pulling Barnes out.
What did Brady do in that situation? You're not setting him up for success. You're not setting Gary up for success. Like it's just a horrible lineup. And
Gary is supposed to be a starter. So that is part
Gary
of
plays off people. He's not a self-creator. You can't put the ball in his hands and say make magic happen. He's not Lou Will.
Well, this is the thing, right? When we talk about, you know, measuring out an equation, right? You solve for the wrong variable, or you solve incorrectly for one variable. Now, one variable that they have incorrectly solved for is that Malachi Flynn is a floor general. He is not. They've talked about I don't know what he is either, but like my point is, you know, you waived the real floor general that you had in Jeff Doughton, and now you have this guy who is not a floor general. I've always said he's a 2. He's absolutely a 2. Putting the ball in his hands is a mistake. So you have incorrectly assumed that he can run your second unit. You've incorrectly assumed that he can organize the offense. You've incorrectly assumed that he can run a pick and roll because if he can run a pick and roll, then play him with Jakob. Play him with your best screener. Play him with a guy who goes downhill and catches and doesn't have hands, you know, made of butter. And maybe then you unlock him. Maybe you can do for Flynn what Nurse did for Fred, which is basically give him Jakob Poeltl. And maybe the only way to do this is if you insist on playing Malachi Flynn, and I'm not like saying he's the worst player in the world or anything like that. He's not good. And he's not one of your 10 best players. So if you insist on using his skill set, as in the player type that you need, well, then his player type needs a Jakob Poeltl to play off of, or somebody else that you believe can do Jakob Poeltl things, which is Christian Koloko, but who's not available right now.
You guys think he's playing today, or
who?
A couple hours? You guys think he's going to play against Philly?
Who?
I think he's out of the rotation now.
Malachi?
Yeah.
Well, he's definitely playing against Philly.
Because
I think he's going to play too. I think he's going to play too.
Boucher's playing tomorrow for sure. After the energy he gave him today, he's playing.
Boucher against Joel Embiid and Paul Reed. Good luck. It's going to be fun. No, actually, he's performed really well against them. Do you know in the playoffs?
He was our best player.
2 years ago. Yeah. 2 years ago in the playoffs, analytically, he was your best player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's had success. He. I can't say
minus 14 in 4 minutes is pretty brutal.
Yeah, look, I don't like plus minus in general, but here it is definitely telling the truth. Like for some players, it's not telling the truth. Like, but sometimes you get fucked, right? Because you're on the court with a guy who's just missing everything, turning everything over, and you're like, what am I supposed to do right now? But when you actually look at the contribution of those minutes that were so bad with Flynn, it was really Flynn and Boucher, Precious. It was those two guys just making mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake, and again, offense and defense works on a string. He made a lot of mistakes defensively too. So look, when you cannot study the tape and continue to play him, you simply cannot. But my question then would be, if you pull this guy out of the rotation right now after 2 games and he's played so badly and he's in a contract year, how do you give him another opportunity? When do you give him another opportunity? Is this the end of the line? Do you just waive him outright? Like, what do you do at this point? Because
it's the end of the line for his career.
100%.
Who's going to pick him up?
I don't know. I have no idea. But this is the point. And look, like I've been.
But they gave him the red carpet. Like, who's to blame at this point? They gave him the red carpet this year.
If you, I'm just curious. You guys, I'm sure you watch a lot of Pinsari basketball content. Would you agree that I've been very optimistic and positive for the most part this offseason?
Yeah.
Relative to last season, right?
Yeah.
If you could say I've had one criticism of this team for the last 3 months, could you sum it up in one word?
Free Jeff Dutton.
That's 3 words. No, the one actual criticism. Jeff Dutton is not a criticism; it is my fanboydom. But it's been Flynn. Flynn has been the target of my ire literally since I saw him playing in preseason, and it's every single post game. It's like, stop playing him, stop playing him. I've been subject to a lot of threats. I'm not kidding. Like threats, like actual fucking threats over basketball. Fucking other content creators making videos, like, targeting me for, being against Malachi Flynn, being unfair. Bro, I don't have a personal vendetta against the guy. I empathize. I really do. I genuinely feel for him. Don't think he got the fairest shake, but I also don't think when we drafted him that he was the right pick. And I've always kind of had this idea, like there was a bit of optimism early on that he could turn into something, but after about 3-4 months of his rookie season, I was just out. I was out on him, like there was some optimism in summer league. I think I saw a couple of things where I was like, oh, this guy could be a shooter. Like maybe if he could shoot, he has defensive pedigree in college. But then when I saw that the defense didn't scale up in the NBA, it was just, okay, he can't defend. He's an older rookie. Can't really shoot.
Better last year. Like right now, his biggest issue is he has no confidence in himself. Like he looks scared up there.
He does. So the question is, why does he have no confidence? And can you give him confidence? Because I understand why they're playing him. The theory of him is great. See, Malachi theorized and Precious theorized. Again, when I say theory, I mean 2K. I mean, if you take their exact attributes and you're in charge of their decisions on 2K, right? Not their brain is in charge, but you are in charge of Malachi's decisions on 2K. This lineup works perfectly. Problem with 2K is not real life. And in real life, Malachi is going to do things that 2K Malachi is never going to do. And Precious Achiuwa is going to jump into people and commit crazy turnovers and take stupid shots that you would never take with Precious Achiuwa if you were playing with him in 2K. This is the problem. The Raptors keep playing 2K, right? Because in 2K, if all your guys are 6'9" and they can block shots, you're pretty hard to stop. right? You're pretty damn defensive. You block everything. You get like 25 blocks a game. That's 2K though. In reality, like these players all have to make decisions and calculations in a very timely manner, and they're consistently making the wrong ones. And I'm curious, like I said it before the season started. I don't want to make any hard judgments about this team until 15 games in, and I'm making so many hard ones already. So maybe I need to walk back and chill, and not be so reactionary, and just say, okay, let's trust the process. This is a new system, new team, new coach, new point guard, new guys learning each other. What bothers me is I'm seeing a lot of the same shit that I saw last year, but Scotty has taken a step.
I would debate that it's a new system. I'm not really seeing much from Darko here in terms of his judgment calls. I mean, it's okay to bet on Malachi Flynn a little bit here to start the season. New coach, new opportunity. Maybe you can revitalize some of what he can possibly bring to us. But at this point, you've got to know your players. You got to be able to implement a game plan. First of all, his game management in the fourth quarter was pretty atrocious. We were up by 10 points with 4.5 minutes left to go. I mean, yeah, I get it. It's the guys on the floor that are playing here, but
no. You're right. I think you've hit it on the head. It is him. It is 100% him. I don't want to say 100% him. It's at least 50% him for sure. If you are a coach and you see your team doing this, like where they're just kind of stalling and trying to get out of the building with the win, you need to call a timeout.
Yeah,
You need to call a timeout and remind them of how they got this lead. I mean, I'm not trying to go, Gene Hackman and Hoosiers, like give them a pep talk. You wear yourself out pretty thin if you keep doing that. But at some point, you have to remind them this is the thing. And look,
you can tell they thought they had the game won at the 4-minute mark.
Exactly. And this is I mean, if you could diagram 2 games that the Raptors needed to play this season to understand what the hell is wrong with this team and roster and their construction, and I think these are the 2 games. This is a very good learning experience early for this team to learn how to play with the lead in the fourth quarter, which, look, veteran teams know how to do this. Good teams.
That's on Schroeder.
It is 100%. It is also on him. Yes.
He walks the ball up the court. Like he just stops. He walks it up, holds it. The offense starts at 14 seconds.
I agree. And that's the thing, right? The Raptors were super turnover prone tonight, and turnovers killed them. And they're just trying to be safe with the basketball and not surrender, some sort of live ball turnover that's going to result in a dunk. But at some point, you have to thread the middle on being conservative and being passive and timid. Like there is a difference. Right. Like exactly. LeBron is really good at this. Like when you watch LeBron playing 4 minutes, like let's say it's 4 minutes to go, Lakers up 5. That game is pretty much secure unless someone else fucks up. Yeah. It's not going to be him. So the time and score element of this, the game management, but that's 19 years of, experience. That's a lot of blown games in the fourth quarter. That's the Dallas series. Like that's a lot of freaking experience.
Team a good shot.
Right.
We weren't getting good shots.
Right. So my thing is at this point, if you want to build up this program correctly, you need to determine one thing. What is the capacity for understanding and growth in the players you are attempting to teach? This is important. See, Grady, will learn from things that he did today, but I don't think he made a lot of mistakes. I know he missed both the shots. I don't care. He could miss the next 50 shots. I don't care. He's a good shooter. He's gonna shoot well in the NBA at some point. It's gonna go down. Shot is pure. He's not missing wildly. It's not air balls. They're just not going down. It happens, right? But with him, I could see okay, in-game reps for this guy. He's going to make mistakes on defense. He's going to go back. He's going to study the tape. He's going to learn. He's going to get better. And it's just, I can see that with him, there will be growth on the margins for the next 5 years. And he's going to get smarter and better and smarter and better and smarter and better until one day you look up and you're going to be looking at an all-star. With Precious Achiuwa, I've been watching him make the same mistakes for 3 straight years. I mean, you don't think Nick Nurse broke this down for him? What were those film sessions like? Precious, you're doing a great job. No, man, it's the same mistakes. Same thing, so I just think at some point they need to make a determination on what Jesse was talking about is basketball IQ. How intelligent does your team need to be to play this way? The Kings learned the hard way last year. You need smart players if you want to play this way. Yeah.
And he's in a contract year, right? He hasn't gotten an extension, so there's no real where's his
Who?
personal urgency?
Achua.
Yeah, where's his personal urgency at?
Oh yeah, I mean,
help it.
and
Can't help
look, this is what I said. When he talked about being, one of the best defensive players in the NBA, he's like, I am the best. I'm one of the best defensive players. It's like you are not.
Yeah.
You are again. You are on 2K. You might be one of the best in theory defenders. In a lab, but you're not, because great defenders don't make the mistakes you make mentally. Physically, you might be one of the 10 best defenders of all time. I don't know. Like, geez, if I could give some of my favorite defenders like Sidney Moncrief, or even like someone like Bill Russell, if I can give Bill Russell his athletic gifts, but the mental gifts of a Bill Russell are missing.
This is where the Darko thing comes in, where it's like this isn't
them?
a Phil Jackson led team. You can't sit back and let the team solve their own mistakes.
Right.
It's like you got to get in there and call a timeout, because like that run they were on, it was like a 40-9, something crazy.
Yeah.
Like, these guys are not going to solve the problems very quickly. The IQ is bottom tier. Like you got to do some real coaching, like it's a college team. Like there's players like I don't call timeouts to teach them, like play through it. Like that's for a team that's going to go deep in the playoffs. Like,
do any of you play chess?
Yes.
Okay, Maroon Prince, you play chess. This is like pawn to D2. Like right now, where we're at in the season is pawn to D2, which is to say this is opening game. You have to consider that, I like to break seasons up into chunks. Usually I like to break them into fifths or fourths, maybe eighths if I'm being very specific about certain things. And there's certain, benchmarks for what you want to have accomplished in those intervals. So in the first eighth of the season, I want to have this accomplished. In the second eighth of the season, I want to have this accomplished. By the fourth quarter, by the third quarter of the season, I want to have this set in. I want to have this guy activated. I want to have this part of my offense wrinkled out. I want to have implemented this set, that set, my ATOs, whatever. I think for this team that has spent all summer, gassing themselves up to some extent, feeling very hype about themselves and the season they're going to have, I think a game like this is a very humbling reminder, because you didn't face the Denver Nuggets. You didn't face the Milwaukee Bucks. You didn't do this against the Celtics. You did this against the Bulls. You didn't beat the Bulls. And you had them. You had them and you let them go. This is self-inflicted. And they cannot look at Darko and say, well, bro, like you didn't put the right people on the court. It's like the same people who were on the court who fucked it up, or the same people who got the lead.
He made the adjustments in the second half. I'll give him that. We lost the second half. He messed up with the lineups in the first half. He corrected his mistake in the second half. That I agree.
Yes. He adjusted quickly, which is important, and I wonder who spoke to him about it. See, this is sometimes
probably his eyes.
One would hope, but hopefully one of his assistants. I wonder if he needs, if at some point, look, and again, if we're talking about this,
let's talk about some positives as well too.
But the Darko is just literally on an overall too comfortable. Like, I don't want to make too much of the opening quarter, but when Billy Donovan called that timeout with about 6 minutes left to go, we've been pretty much schooling them up to then in the first quarter. You have to know that they're going to come out guns blazing out of that timeout. Why is that the time that you sub in Malachi Flynn?
And he ruined the momentum by just
everything was
4 starters off. Like he just
complete 180 to the whole game because of that judgment call.
He just brought 4 bench guys in,
and you've got to know that that's not the right move at that moment.
Yeah, no, I agree. Christian, I agree. Let's talk about some positives. Can you guys give me your one positive for the game each?
I guess I'll start. I'll say that when this team really locks in and everybody's paying attention to their assignment, you can't score on them. You really can't score. I was thinking Chicago had even at the beginning of the game, they just could not score on them. They just, it was impossible when you have OG locked in, even Siakam locked in. When they're all just locked in, this team's impossible to score on, especially that starting lineup with those 5 guys when they're all
Mhm.
on the string, like it's like it's not pretty on offense, but it's pretty on defense, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Just make them make shots. That's it.
Yeah.
Make them score, and they can't.
Yeah.
For me, I would say that Scotty Barnes is sort of getting into this undeniable territory with his talent. Like at some point, people are just gonna have to come around to the fact that with the ball in his hands, the team operates at a different level offensively. People have to honor the fact that he's nearly 6'10", 250 pounds, probably the strongest guy on the court. When he's going downhill, it's hard to stop him or at least avoid putting him on the line. And he has the vision and the passing ability to get the ball anywhere on the court. He's got to really tone it down with the turnovers, but the ball does belong in his hands on merit, and it's going to be hard to deny that at this point. Triple-double tonight. I see more in the future.
I think he'll probably have about 7 or 8 triple doubles by the end of the year. I think it's if he pushed for it. I mean, and the best part about Scotty triple doubles is they're not Andre Blatch triple doubles, and they're not Ricky Davis triple doubles. He didn't chase them. He didn't want it. He just got it. So, yeah. Coach Mo, positives.
I was gonna say the defense. When
But
we're
then
not fouling,
Christian stole your thunder.
but when we're not fouling and we're not turning the ball over, man. Bulls per 100 possessions, they don't crack 90. Like it was that bad for them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think my positive is Boucher. I felt that was a good game for him. Like I was happy for Boucher this game because I know he must have been upset with not playing because he's a competitor and he wants to be out there because he believes he can help the team better than certain guys that were on the court. I'm sure. So I was happy.
Yeah, I think there's this comment here. He ran the point with 7 turnovers. If you didn't watch this game, you probably thought Scotty was a big reason for the disastrous turnovers this team had. His turnovers were his own issue. Like, they were his own thing. Like, Scotty was playing one game, the Raptors were playing another game for me. But the turnovers overall issue for the Raptors was was largely a team issue. Even some of his turnovers were team issues with guys just not reading, reacting, whatever.
Oh my God. Like, I just want to mention 2 turnovers. You know when OG got the 5-second violation?
Yes.
No one came up as a release valve. Like they all just stood there. Like that from middle school. And when Scotty got the pressure from Craig, Gary did it. It was too late. Like you have to flare all the way out to the half court. Be a release valve. They're pressuring him, and 2 guys are hedging. Like help him out. Like do something. Like the IQ. It was just like it was so bad. Like
I gotta watch again. I
pressured. Like help. Get up. Be an option. Like don't just stand there and let him sink.
The reason for a lot of this is that teams don't actually respect Pascal offensively the way that you would assume he would be. And like we actually need to address that aspect of it. I understand the defensive points. Like if we can preserve the defensive potency while also trading Pascal for somebody who's a little bit more offensively potent, then we might have something here. But nobody's respecting Pascal offensively, and it's actually causing
here's a thought experiment for you. If you right now swapped Pascal Siakam for Jeremy Grant, would you be a better team?
Possibly. I think it's possible.
That's the crazy part. It is possible.
It's insane.
It is insane.
It's insane.
Right? And that's not saying that one is better than the other. It's saying that, again, see, I did a live earlier today, which I think a lot of people missed or didn't catch. And it was about defensive archetypes and the value of certain defensive players and how defense works on a string and everything we misunderstand about defense. And I encourage anybody who's up super late tonight after this live ends, go watch the back end of that after the previews. And I did my season previews and stuff. And one of the things I said was, yes, on paper, as a dot, Fred VanVleet is a better defender than Dennis Schroeder. But for this team, with the pieces that are on this team, Dennis Schroeder is a better defender than Fred VanVleet. And he is unlocking like some sort of God mode defensive, efficiency for this team. Because and I likened it to chess. And I said, it's like these long wings are like rooks on a chessboard. I don't know if that analogy makes sense to you, Maroon Prince, but like the way that they move and cover space is very much like a rook. And you have this plotting sort of center who has, some mobility, but he doesn't have necessarily the great stretch to close out like Jakob. So he's your knight.
Mhm.
And Dennis for Fred is like almost like replacing another knight with a bishop.
Mhm.
There's a quick tinge to him, like the way he's able to pick up higher is giving OG and Siakam and Barnes a completely different angle to come help. And it's also containing much more of a pressured like force left, force right. Whereas Fred, it was like the defender could do whatever the offensive player is going to do whatever he
You
wants.
can't pick on Dennis. You can't pick on him. It's
Yeah,
hard.
he's feisty, he's
Yeah.
competitive, and he gives a great effort at the top, further from the basket. Whereas Fred, he'll allow you to probably close to the 3-point line before he starts really applying some pressure on you, and then he'll try to pressure the pass. Whereas Dennis is pressuring your movement, and that's different.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I see Dennis also does this thing where he sort of feints like a little bit. He's almost like sort of drunk monkeying his way through defense, where he plays behind the possession a little bit, but knows that he can recover. So he's sort of he's being really unorthodox. Like, I personally think it's an interesting quirk to have somebody that quick who's also willing to be a little bit unorthodox with his defense because he trusts his ability to recover.
That's exactly it. It's
He
all
has length.
like offense and defense is invertedly the same game. It's inverted the same game on a like the whole point is uncomfortable. I want to make you uncomfortable on one end. I want to make you uncomfortable on the other end. The more uncomfortable I make you, the more likely I am to score. So defensively, you want to get guys to their weaker hands. You want to force them in spots on the court that you know that they're going to be ineffective. You want to help exactly when you want to time your help. You want to put the types of defenders on them that are actually just annoying. I loved Jakob Poeltl talking about what it's like to be guarded by Scotty Barnes, and I love Jakob Poeltl just as a person. Just listening to his interviews is like it's refreshing because he's no fluff. He's just perfectly honest.
He's very
And-
thoughtful with his answers.
What did he say?
He said it's annoying. Scotty's annoying. Like, he's annoying on defense. Like, he's very annoying. And, again, I've never played against Scotty Barnes, but I've watched him play guys my size in practice. And I'm just like, it must be like walking in quicksand.
We had him on Vooch and not Boucher because we learned our lesson in that preseason game. We learned our lesson big time. Don't put Boucher on Vooch. No,
Right.
no.
And but that's my point. Like guys like Alex Caruso, they make you uncomfortable.
They make Pascal uncomfortable.
Correct. They don't make Scotty Barnes uncomfortable.
Oh, no.
Scotty Barnes takes it to
Barnes
the woodshed
was
every single time.
By the way,
By the end of his
that's why
career,
Barnes
I'm going to
is
make
so
a
smart.
Scotty Barnes versus Alex Caruso highlight mix of just Scotty owning Caruso. It's Elmer Fudd, man. It's hilarious.
I'd be interested in Caruso. Like, okay, for example.
Oh my God, I would give up so much.
I was about to say it. You didn't go where I was going to go, but I wouldn't be like. I'm interested in hearing a deal centered around Alex Caruso, and
You're going to say Pascal, aren't you?
Of course, I'm going to say Pascal. It's no offense to Pascal. This is a little bit disrespectful, and
A little bit.
I want to know a little bit more about what could be done. I'm really interested in Zach LaVine personally as well. So
No,
there
I'd
could
rather
be
have
like
DeMar. Sorry.
I would
You'd
even
rather
listen
have
for
DeMar?
DeMar, but
Yeah,
DeMar and
cheaper.
Caruso.
DeMar's cheaper, plays more games. Will be he's cheaper. I'm sorry.
Takes-
I'm not.
he's-
I don't
he's
want nothing to do with
He's
Zach.
reason
way
that they're-
worse for your spacing, man. Like
Yeah,
DeMar
I
is
don't
all
want nothing to do
mid.
with Zach LaVine's contract. Please, I don't want it. I don't want it.
It's okay. I understand and totally not on board with that. Like, okay, here I'll make you a deal.
I think we're over exaggerating after game 2, guys.
No, I'm just saying this is
I've
hypothetical.
seen 7 years of Pascal. I know exactly what I'm talking about with Pascal Siakam. I'm trying
No,
to get.
I see what Maroon Prince is saying. First of all, like between Siakam and Caruso, you have the two opposite ends of NBA fandom. Number one is a bench guy who is super underrated because the box score does not
He
capture
started
his value.
finals games for the Lakers. He started finals games for the Lakers. Vogel knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing.
Absolutely. Bench starting doesn't matter. He is definitely one of the 4 best players
He's
on the
closing.
Bulls
He's
right
a
now.
closer. He's on the court. He's your best 5.
He hit the most
Absolutely.
clutch shot of the game tonight.
He did. And on the other hand, you have Pascal Siakam, which is, a complete throwback to early 2000s basketball. The guy who puts up 25, 6, and 5, clearly your franchise guy. When I think Pascal Siakam, the closest player that I can think of, and it's not player type, it's not player style. Please don't take this too literally.
You're gonna say Jerry Stackhouse?
I am gonna say Jerry. Wow,
That's hilarious.
Wow, bro. Okay, first of all, Stackhouse was a way more prolific scorer, but I do want to say, yes, the thought process that comes to me is empty calories, right?
Can Stackhouse score on Caruso?
He'll die trying. I'll tell you that much. He'll take 45 shots a game if you put Alex Caruso on him. He will not. It's a stubborn mentality, when you're inefficient, like the way Stack was. I think Stack has put up like nearly 30 points per game one year, right, for the Pistons, and they went nowhere.
Mhm.
So the difference between Stackhouse and Pascal, or DeMar and Pascal, or any one of these, sort of not top guys who take top guy role types things, is Pascal does so many other things on the basketball court that are potentially valuable for you. So, for instance, we talked about Alex Caruso's defense. Well, in theory, Pascal Siakam could be an even better defender. But again, this is not 2K. This is real life. And in real life, you have to buy into that end. You have to be smart. You have to study tape. And guys like Alex Caruso do that. And I'm not sure Pascal Siakam does that. So, yeah, I can understand. If you were to make a deal centered around Caruso and Patrick Williams, something like that, I don't know. I think it's a lateral move.
I'm listening.
I'd listen too. It's a lateral move though, for sure, because you're losing one thing and you're getting one thing else, right? You lose self-creation, you lose playmaking, you probably lose a little bit of defensive versatility. Because Siakam can definitely guard 5 through 2, or at least 4 through 1. I don't know which, and maybe Caruso is a little
none
less.
of them particularly well though. You know what I mean? So it's one of these things. He's getting
can,
back cut way more than
he
a
can
veteran
defend
should.
well. He can defend well. He hasn't in the last couple of years, but you go back to the finals. Sorry, not the finals. You go back to the playoff run where they won a championship, and I understand that I'm talking about 25-year-old Siakam, and now we're talking about 29-year-old Siakam, and so 4 years have passed, and maybe he's a different player, et cetera, et cetera. I've seen spurts and moments of incredible defense from Pascal Siakam, where if he commits to that end of the basketball court. But tonight, for the second straight night, I saw Pascal Siakam miss box out assignments. I saw Pascal Siakam miss rotations, close out late. I also saw Scotty close out late, a couple times with his hands down. So this team, if it locks into we are going to be the best team, best defensive team in the league every night, every play, that one part of the game, we are never going to cheat this game, then you'll be fine. You will absolutely make the playoffs. You will probably be a very tough first round exit for somebody, and you will beat the crap out of them.
Why did we shut out Barnes at the end of the game? I know it's not on purpose, but I
don't fucking know, man. I wish I knew. I don't
think we shut him out, because if we remember the last couple plays, like even the last play where Siakam ends up driving, that play started with it was Dennis and Barnes, a pick and roll. But then
he shut himself out. Let's be honest.
Sure.
Okay.
But we need to go away from Caruso.
And then somehow, for some reason, the ball always ends up in Siakam's hand after a play doesn't work for some reason.
Because he holds the ball, he makes sure
No, but
he couldn't even get a shot off to win.
No. I think Christian's right. On the one hand, you could say because he holds the ball. How does he get the ball?
There you go. That's somebody gave him that ball to drive on that last possession. He didn't start with the ball in that possession.
In hindsight, though, Siakam taking Caruso off the dribble, I'd rather him just shoot it over him, to be honest with you.
Bro, I would rather him taking Caruso off the dribble for a pull-up. I would rather him just literally walk out of bounds.
Really, for real, honestly.
For real, because at least that's a dead ball turnover as opposed to a live ball transition. It won't work. It doesn't work. I mean, I caught a lot. I probably deserved a lot of the slack that I got last year for all my shitting on Pascal Siakam for whatever. And I mean, there's really no need to do it right now. I'm not shitting on the guy because nobody out here is claiming that he's a top 5 player. Nobody's out here telling me he's an MVP candidate. So I'm chill. I'm cool. Just keep that shit on the lock. Keep that shit on the low. From me, if you're gonna tweet that shit at me, just block me. Don't let me hear it top 10, top 5, all-star. I don't superstar shit. Fuck it.
He did give the Bulls 32 in that play-in game though, even though he missed obviously in the
what?
He had 32 in that play-in game.
Yeah, but he blew the free throws to end
I
the game.
know. I'm not. All I'm saying is
They
like,
weren't on Caruso. They
No,
weren't
no,
on
no.
Caruso.
You know what? Facts. Like I think Christian's right. I mean, for me, when I was watching that game, I was like, oh, he's exercised his playoff demons. I mean, granted, it's not playoffs, it's playing, but
Yeah.
still, I mean, it was a high leverage game, and he showed up. He choked in the end, which left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. So people do forget that he had a really good game up to that point.
The
I
funny
agree.
thing is,
It was Fred who had the terrible game.
oh my goodness, ugly. But the funny thing is, Siakam hit 2 big threes last game, but he was off ball. Like he's actually really good. Just stop forcing him to make plays. He's a great play finisher.
I agree with that.
And if you're gonna force him to
100%.
make plays, make it in an advantageous situation, not against Caruso.
Yeah, like I mean, sometimes you're throwing the ball to Precious Achua and he's fumbling it, right? Siakam probably wouldn't fumble that. He would probably put it up and probably get to the line. So that's and again,
I think it's more of the players that have to get in the mind to not put them in that situation as well too.
this is a player's issue. You're right.
Yeah.
This is a players need to talk to players about players issue. You cannot put the coach in the position to say, hey, I know you're our max guy, but you're our second option now.
Because that
can't
play
do that.
didn't start out with.
I don't think it works that way.
Siakam.
Yeah, but
like-
Dennis is one of these guys that will say that though. Jakob strikes me as one of these guys that will say that. I think the situation is just tough on these players to, in a new system, new coach, new environment, make such a transformational adjustment to the hierarchy here. I think you got to move Siakam.
But I think it's like, even if you're LeBron James, if Aaron Gordon's on you, and let's say a weaker defenders on Anthony Davis, just get the ball to Anthony Davis. Stop. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care how great of a player you are. Kawhi in his prime is guarding you. I know you're Kevin Durant, but maybe let's swing it to Kyrie Irving. He has a way easier matchup instead of forcing the issue. But those guys are great players. Siakam's not even great, and he's forcing the issue on an all-world defender. Like, just go to the other side. Like, get away from this defender that's just disruptive. Go the other way.
Yeah, Caruso ate his lunch tonight.
He always eats his lunch. Caruso eats everyone's lunch,
Not Barnes.
not Barnes.
That
Not
Atlanta
Barnes.
deal is looking really good right now.
Atlanta's
just gotta
0-2,
say.
by the way. Atlanta's 0-2. So let's cross your
Let
fingers.
them get desperate, man. Let them get
Cross your
desperate
fingers.
and let them start to panic a little bit. I'm just curious if they're going to see Pascal Siakam as a solution to their problems because he's not having the greatest season so far. I mean, I haven't looked at his analytics report for today's game, but he had a 9 PER last game. Just an FYI to anyone out there, 15 is league average. Now, I don't like PER, but none of his other analytics are sticking out either. I think he had no offensive win shares for the first game. Like he's just not. He's not there. He's not.
Where are his
He's
moves?
not.
All this time in the gym. Where's your move? What's your go-to move? Like, for a guy who's gotten so much better, sometimes I'm like, what? Like, he runs into people, screams, falls down. That's like,
There's also not a lot of space for him to move. I'm telling you, this
No,
is
I
not. This is not an offense that is optimized for anybody right now, and it's largely because the lineups and the roster construction are dog shit again,
mhm.
right? So last year we were complaining about, or we have space issues, right? That was when Fred and Gary were starting. We had space issues with Fred and Gary. Now you've replaced Gary with Jakob, which is your best three-point shooter, has gone out for the worst three-point shooter in the NBA, possibly. Okay. That was the team that had spacing issues, but let's take out the best guy for the worst guy in the NBA and let's see if that works. Oh, that didn't work? Okay. Now let's replace a 37% three-point shooter in Fred VanVleet on high volume, a deep three-point shooter, with a guy who's 32 to 33% from three on not super deep volume and is mainly a corner three-point shooter, which, oh, by the way, is exactly where every single player on your team is efficient, except for Grady. And let's actually invert it so that we force Grady into corner three-point shots where he's not efficient from and force Dennis into top three-point shots where he's not efficient from. Like, do you know what I mean? Like this is just, it's messy. It's messy and it's early, and maybe we just need to allow these teams, you know, sometimes when you're a coach, you have an idea, you present it to the team, and they're not ready to hold that idea yet because they haven't seen enough of the season play out. They haven't had enough experience with it. See, right now, if you want to go to Malachi and say you're out of the rotation, it's a really different message than if you'd done it two games ago, right? Where he hadn't had a chance. Now he might be salty. Right now, he would know. I'm -30, -28 in less than I'm negative 30 almost in 18 minutes of game time. Is it 18 minutes of game? Did he play 14 minutes last game? Or did he play 10 minutes last game? I fucking don't remember.
I think it was 14.
Well, he was negative 14 and I think 9 minutes last game. And he was negative 14. He is negative 28 in 14, 15 minutes of game time, I think. That's insane. That's 2 points every minute you're on the court that the other team is outscoring. The offensive rating with him on the court must be like 2 or some shit like that.
You know what's funny? When you were talking about the talent on this team and you're watching other teams play players that we've let go, like the Suns or the Warriors.
Yeah.
And we have Marquise Noel on the roster and we have Flynn on the roster. It's like we could have so much better talent. Like I'm watching the Nuggets and the guys they're getting off the bench, and it's just like we're doing a horrible job with our 15th, 14th, 13th men. Like there's so much.
Would you like to have Julian Strawther on this team right now and Christian Brown?
And we have Marquise Noel and Ron Harper Jr. It's like, is that really the best talent that's out there that is just gonna rot on our bench?
I hear you. It's horrible. Like without a draft pick and without an abundance of draft picks, like there is not like that much hope either. It's not like we're not like those teams that hold some really big in their prime teams draft pick in 2027, 2029, and you're just like, oh, if Giannis falls off or if this Dame thing doesn't work, we're fucking set, right? Because you're gonna get like top 10 picks in these really loaded drafts. We don't even have that.
No.
Because most likely with Scotty in his prime, you're not going to be bad enough to get lottery picks, right? And you're not going to be good enough to put enough around him because you have really not drafted or accumulated talent well enough, either in trades or via free agency.
And to compound that, you're not even developing rotation players on the back end of your bench.
Number one, that. Number two, I look at Jeff Doughton, someone like that, who does work out for you, who plays really well for you, who's super cheap. I look at that as a plug. Like your ship is sinking. Here's a plug. It plugs the water at the point of the crash, right? Like I'm just thinking like Simpsons episode, the pin. He's the pin. You put the pin in.
All right, stops the go, fellas. You guys have a good night.
All right, peace, Christian. Take care. See ya. It's like stops the bleeding, stops the leak, and it allows, I think, it allows you to worry about other places on your roster. You say, okay, well, we got this. We weren't expecting it, but we got this. And so now we can focus on bench shooting and a hustle big or a stretch big and developing that type of player. And so you start putting your resources in to try to find that type of player. Maybe you have to move a couple of draft picks. Maybe you just draft really well. Maybe you find him in Europe somewhere. Maybe you have to find someone in the free agent heap who another team gave up on who might have some late bloom potential. But right now when I look at the bench and I look at this team, I'm like, okay, OG, I can get around. Scotty, I can get behind. Grady, I can get behind. Koloko, if it's health stuff. Like I have seen enough from him to
Gary, I can get behind. I can get behind Gary.
Okay.
You can get behind Gary. But after that,
yeah, exactly. You have 18 people on your team, and you can see 5 of them on this roster in like 4 or 5 years as part of your long-term core. That's a problem because I can tell you right now with the Denver Nuggets, I can find 8 guys. With the Indiana Pacers, I can find 7 guys. With the Portland Trailblazers, I can find 8 guys.
Love the Pacers.
Love the Pacers too. Even the Orlando Magic, I could find 7, 8 guys in the Orlando Magic that I'm comfortable going forward with. You don't have 8 guys that you're comfortable going forward with. You have aging out vets that are good players, but maybe don't fit what you lack elsewhere in your roster. You have these kind of journeyman type of guys like Thaddeus Young or Dennis Schroeder, who are going to be well past their prime by the time Scotty is ready to take that jump. You have Pascal Siakam, who could potentially be in that same camp. It is a little bit complicated. Like, do I see Jakob Poeltl, a center who doesn't shoot, as my starting center when I'm ready to compete for championships? Difficult. Really difficult to see that happening. I would prefer a player who can shoot in that position. Could I see him as a backup big, as he ages closer to 30? Sure. So maybe we'll add 6. We'll add Jakob to that, but as a bench big, not as a starting one.
Nope.
So it is really difficult to see the full length vision, and without the draft assets and with assets like Fred VanVleet just walking out the door, it becomes a little bit more complicated for me to see how you achieve that end result. Anyways, any closing thoughts here?
Without bottoming out.
Yeah, without bottoming out. And I mean, like, how do you bottom out? And again, like, if Scotty's as good as we think he's going to be able to single-handedly carry to 32 wins. You know, like, put anyone around him, he's going to put you at 30 wins. It's like the Jokic thing. Like, the floor raising is just so much. Like, you put Jokic with 5-6 G League guys, you're going to win 30, 32 games. Like, that's what he's good for by himself. You know what I mean? So it's tough. Any closing thoughts?
For me, I would say, we've all known this, but I think it's just going to become a more unavoidable fact throughout the rest of the season. Siakam doesn't fit here. He just doesn't fit. We could do better. Doesn't have to be a comparable talent, just a better fit. Like, I think of Cam Johnson from Brooklyn as an example of what I mean here. Not a similar talent, but a better fit. That's my closing thought.
Crazy smart player, though. Damn, that guy is smart.
Yeah, he is.
I just think like, imagine him in our lineup with, like, he's a legitimate shooter. He has defensive potential. He's got the intellect to fit into a system and play up to the highest levels. He's not as talented as Pascal Siakam, but with us, he's just more what would make us better.
You need to, yeah, exactly. You need to make these people basketball savants to play at this level, and they're not. Anyways, Coach Mo, closing thoughts?
No, just listening to that, it's just sad. People need to. You think people need to brace themselves for if there's a Siakam trade, what we're gonna get back? Like, how low it might be.
Yes.
Like, people might be shocked.
Yeah.
Because his stock's only falling.
Unfortunately,
We should have traded him right after.
Oh my God!
Trade.
Expiring, not playing well, going over 30.
Well, I mean, all the more reason to become, at least a winning team.
Yep.
And hopefully to get his numbers up a little bit. And if we can get him up to 20 point per game, 18 point per game on somewhat more efficient splits, and you're winning, suddenly no one cares. Right now he's the second best or best player on a winning team. I don't think he's your best player right now.
No, I don't.
I think he's your most skilled player.
I think Scotty and OG have been better than him this year.
So far, yes.
If OG doesn't leave, we win the game 100%.
I think so too. Yeah.
Because all those fouls on DeMar, OG takes care of that.
We've got a good foundational too.
You know what else was in common with the stretch of disastrous basketball we played with Precious and Malachi? O.G Anunoby was not on the court.
I mean, I don't think OG would have helped. If it's one starter and those four, it's a disaster. The way they were playing.
I think he would have helped. I don't know if he would have stopped it, but I think he would have helped. It's impossible for him not to help. He is like a walking.
If he's the lone starter.
So OG, Malachi, Grady, Jalen McDaniels, and Precious Achiuwa, you think that lineup would absolutely fall apart? I don't.
No, it was Flynn, McDaniels, Precious, Gary, and then throw OG in there. The way Precious and Flynn were playing, no one could save them. It was just a disaster.
So not for nothing, McDaniels too. McDaniels hasn't really, shown out in his minutes either. I get it.
Yeah, McDaniels, he doesn't swing it one way or the other. He's basically like a neutral.
Yeah.
So, also, shout outs to the Houston Rockets, who managed to lose their second straight game.
They had a lead too. They had a good.
They did have a lead. Victor Wembanyama with 21 points and 12 rebounds.
By the way, Rob, for Houston's sake, their first two games were Orlando and San Antonio. Now, albeit on the road, but I mean, it only gets tougher.
It does, but Fred VanVleet had a near triple double.
How many threes did he miss?
He went 2 for 10 from 3, but he shot.
Serious?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Wow.
He shot 34%. I think his.
But overall, he shot 50% from the field. He had 24 points, 12 assists, and 8 rebounds.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, that was like a God mode parlay game.
It's only downhill from here.
I mean, you look at the box score for the Houston Rockets. Granted, I did not watch the game, but it's like, how is this team supposed to play better than this? You got probably the most efficient game of Fred's life. And again, people saying he's cooked, because Dennis Schroeder had a big first game. He just had a better second game than Dennis Schroeder has had, probably in years, right? This is a really complete big game. And, I was on some Rocket forums and people were talking about Alpe's our best player. their fans are very committed to this idea that Fred is their best player. Very committed. So, kudos to Fred VanVleet out there, doing well and not coasting after signing a big deal. It's very professional of him. He's probably got his eyes already on the next deal.
Yeah.
But it's impressive that he and people clowned him on the first game because he went, I think, like what did he shoot in the first game? It was like
34%.
4 for 13 or something like that.
But he shot well from 3 though.
Yeah.
From the field it was horrible. From 3 it was good.
Yeah, he'll be fine. Like the rest of the roster is absolutely trash. But like again, pawn to D4. This is a very early thing.
What are your thoughts on their 4th overall pick coming off the bench? For a team that's going nowhere.
Honestly, I'm fine with it.
Okay, because his brother, who's not as good as him, is starting in Detroit, which they won today.
That's debatable.
I think that's debatable too. I like Asar Thompson more than Amen Thompson. As a defender, I think he's like. I know the league won't do it because the Pistons won't be good enough, but I think like he might already be like a second team all defense type of guy. He's incredible defensively. Watching that guy is a real inspiration on defense. He's like 19 years old.
The fact that the Pistons are starting Killian Hayes over what's the rookie last year? I forgot his name. He's coming off the bench.
Jaden Ivey.
The fact that Ivan's, oh my God, that's just insane. Which lets you know politics is a real thing because Monty Williams.
He's their Malachi Flynn.
It's like, yeah, like the fix is in. Like it's like built into the job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot for calling in, guys. I appreciate it. And as always, look forward to having more discussions.
We're actually
like
good.
this.
I just want to say that we're actually good. Cut down the mistakes, fix the rotations. We're actually good. Like we're really tough.
I think we're so good that we have to trade Pascal Siakam and give ourselves a chance to be a real team. Like this is charades. We know he doesn't fit here. He's losing value by the day. Like, come on, Masai. Put us out of our misery. Just get us on a track to something.
He waited too long. Like he can't trade him from people. Like he's gonna look so dumb when he trades him and
he looks pretty dumb now to me, to be honest.
I know. Forcing the front office looks so bad with the Flynn situation, and then what we're gonna get from Siakam if we trade him. Fred leaving for nothing. It's just been a horrible 3 years. Barnes is the one saving grace. He's like the one star in the sky,
Mm-hmm. I agree. He has been, interesting, and you can obviously understand like why Raptors Nation was so, perturbed last year, because clearly, like, if it's not going to work with him, that's everything. You know what I mean? That's literally like that's your team. Like you are the most mid team in the history of the world if he doesn't become a superstar.
Oh, of course. Oh my God.
Especially considering like look at the East right now. Anyway, thanks a lot for calling in, guys. Really appreciate it.
All right.
Cheers.
Have a good one, Rob.
Have a good one. See ya. Okay. We're gonna go to some post game reactions, but first I want to take 4 or 5 minutes to hear from Jet. Jet, thanks for holding. How are you?
Good, man. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Can you hear me fine?
It's a little bit boomy, a little echoey.
I'm on my Bluetooth. Okay, hold on. Let me just switch out.
Mm-hmm.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
I can.
Still boomy?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
No worries. I mean,
better now?
That's a little bit better, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I got onto your channel through our late friend Rob. So that's how I got on. So it's been great.
Yes. Or you're
the actor. I'm the actor.
You're the actor guy. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been enjoying your stuff since since the beginning of free agency. So yeah,
right.
I learned a whole bunch of new things about the NBA. I am a casual viewer in a sense that I don't know the analytics that well, so I'm not gonna pretend like I know everything. But I learned from you. But I watch the NBA more like how an actor watches reality TV, because it's fascinating, especially the Raptors.
Interesting. Did you watch tonight's game?
I did. It was a headache. It was a headache to watch because they just kept fumbling at the end.
Right.
And you can only hope that they're going to learn from their mistake. I'm kind of glad that they lost, to be honest with you, because winning, great. but I don't think they would have learned as much. And as you said, been humbled by it if they, if they just got by a thread.
Right. Yeah, I mean, look, like it's early in the season, and yeah, it's difficult to say like if they're going to make the same mistakes over and over. But it seems like people are saying Scotty's pretty upset in the post game. I'll certainly try to pull that video up at some point during tonight's live. But yeah, anyways, any final thoughts here?
No, I just want to say that this whole thing fiasco, I think, with the Raptors started after, like, just before Tampa. And I don't know if you remember, like,
which
Masai
fiasco?
saying this at the press conference, like, we were set 5 years back. Remember him? Do you remember him saying that?
Yes, I do. I do remember that. Yes.
And I think the after effects of that have been in their minds because they fumbled on getting the right draft pick when it came to Flynn and Jalen Harris. I think that affected it because they really couldn't do their proper scouting. And maybe that's why they just oversaw the whole Desmond Bain thing. And now Masai is just trying to save face, I think, because obviously he's all over the place. Like this is like, yes, Raptors are his priority, but he also has the Africa agency he's with?
Giants of Africa.
Yeah, Giants of Africa. So like he's, I think, laying more responsibility on Bobby Webster. And
yeah,
there's probably disconnect up in the front office, and Masai has to, reel it in, and he has to save face because obviously he made mistakes last year with the trade deadline and having too much trust on these players, having fostered them from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, look, they saw what was happening and they made an attempt to fix it. We'll see if they fixed it. But my general view on this is they identified a problem, they called it out, they called it selfishness, they didn't duck it, they didn't run away from it. They got rid of the players. They haven't extended Siakam. I have my questions about that. But you know what? Seeing him play 2 games, I am second guessing my own thoughts. From 5 days ago, why didn't you extend them? I'm like, oh, okay. Because in this offense that is not predicated around getting him 17, 18 isolations a game or whatever, he doesn't look nearly as dominant. And certainly, around the league, you can make a case that people aren't looking at him necessarily the same way right now. That being said, he can come out next game and score 35 points, and suddenly everyone will just go right back to Siakam All-NBA. So, I mean, it's very early in the season. It's very difficult to examine data and trends and patterns. When you're 2 games in, it's very.
I'm just going by the feeling, just from the eye, just from viewing his demeanor. He seems pretty upset that Fred left. He's the only one left on the championship roster that actually contributed. But I think he was the one that...
It's very difficult to psychoanalyze people we don't know. I
absolutely.
understand.
I'm just saying from an eye test. I'm not... Obviously, I'm just saying from my thoughts.
And you're right. And maybe he's upset that he doesn't have a contract extension. Maybe he's upset that he, was dangled in trade rumors. But then he's also like all the vibes. He's hosting. He's hosting the Halloween party. He seems like he's getting along with his teammates really well. There isn't like glaringly obvious basketball body language issues on the court this year so far. 2 games in, there aren't a lot of body language issues so far. There might be if the Raptors continue to choke away fourth quarter leads like this. So, anyways, I think like overall, like I think that people who want to trade him, maybe when they see him in a situation with 4 shooters and proper spacing and see how talented he is, they'll regret it.
No, I give him the benefit of the doubt, obviously.
He, Scotty, Schroeder, Jakob need exactly the ideal same 4 guys. Like if you wanted to put a roster around those 4 guys, it would be the same other 4 guys. And none of those 4 guys would be the 4 guys that are currently there. So, it's a bit of a conundrum where, how are you going to operate with this level of spacing? At what point are you going to make what point are you going to make a move? Who can you actually move? And if a guy is a problem for you, how are you supposed to convince somebody else that they're a solution for them?
Yeah,
right.
And I don't think I can blame the coach too much. I think the whole purpose of
I can.
Okay, I know you can. I can't because I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs, right? Like
you're getting
I'm not as knowledgeable as you.
Okay,
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is, I think what Masai must have told him is, I want you to throw the whole rule book out for like preconceptions of each of these players that Nurse had, and I want you to see how, with your own eyes, of what skill sets there and what's going on, and for him to determine his own plan of action.
Mhm.
So having him witness what has happened today, I think that will just help him obviously fix up those rotations, because he has
Yeah.
to give everybody a benefit of doubt and trust to assess exactly what's going to work. I think that's maybe what's going on here. Maybe I'm mistaken. I don't know.
No, that's a fair point. All right. Thanks a lot for calling in, Jack.
Hey, thanks
Really
very
appreciate
much.
it.
Take your time.
Cheers.
Take care. Bye.
Cheers. All right. We're going to go to Darko Rakovic's presser, and we'll see if we can pull up Scotty Barnes. Does anyone have a link for Scotty's post game? I'm not seeing it on YouTube. So what am I missing? Someone help me out. Okay, let's see here. It is, how long is it? It is 3 minutes. That doesn't seem right. No, it's supposed to be 6 minutes. Why is it 3 minutes? This one's wrong. Hang on. Let me download the right one, and then I'll put the right one on play. It didn't look like the file was big enough, so maybe it just didn't complete downloading. Hang on. Bear with me, guys. Post-game lives after a tough loss with the Raptors like this are never fun. However, again, I think Christian made a really good point about like trying to remain somewhat positive that it is early, and this team was never going to come out and implement the entire new offense. We cannot judge this offense for what it is. What I can judge, however, and that's really what I'm trying to judge, is the rotations, right? I'm trying to judge the intention of who is playing and how they are playing. And I guess, if you make the determination that the guy that you put in the rotation right now is not working out, then, you'll have time to evaluate like the rest of the league. Maybe there's someone on a two-way or somebody that you can sign in the free agent heap or whatever who fits it better, like they did with Will Barton last year. But I agree with Coach Mo as well. What Coach Mo said, this team is good. Like there is something here for sure that, potentially like you could get a 45 win and a competitive playoff run out of this team, I think. So, okay, let's pull up the real Darko Rakovic post-game presser and let that play while I go get a drink of water as well. Here we go.
Your team after a wild, chaotic game like that?
Well, I thought that we competed, especially on defensive end of the ball. Offensively, we were shooting 2 for 19 in the first half, but we were finding ways to stay in the game. We had a couple of runs, we got leads, and we were not able to sustain it. And we need everybody. I told guys that we need every single player that steps on the floor to help us and to contribute. And Chris Boucher, he didn't play in game one. He came in and he did some good stuff there for us. But everybody else gotta be really ready to play every single night.
What did you make of that second unit? Just because you guys had a great start. I think it was 12-2 before any subs were quite made. And then would you just make of that rotation? That's for us to continue looking at our personnel and how we're contributing, how we're meshing with each other. It was a little bit of that, like that we started so well. It started a little bit with the first unit as well. That a couple of times that we allowed Kobe White to go downhill, to score easy, to find the rhythm. Sometimes when you start the game dead well, you can put your guard down. And started with our first 5 guys starting unit, but also it bleeded to everybody else. Now, of course, you guys obviously want to win the game, like obviously every game ideally, but what's that balance between developing younger players and also trying to compete and win? We got to find a balance, and we got to develop our roster 1 through 15, especially young guys, and we got to find ways to be competitive every single night. You touched on it a little bit, but just how impressed were you with Chris tonight?
He did well. He did well. We had a great conversation today. We talked about just staying ready. Getting both bigs in a foul trouble, and just like you just never know when your number is going to be called. So he had good mentality, and he did well tonight.
Coach, did you see improvements from the first game that maybe needed to be made, like kind of slowing down, finding that extra pass? Did you see that, but there were some droughts during the offense, though?
Yeah, so I thought that for the big part of the game, we did a good job of moving the ball and finding extra guy. We did not make enough shots tonight, and also we did not do a great job with taking care of the ball with 21 turnovers, allowing them to get 23 points off of that, and also preventing them to rebound the ball with 15 offensive rebounds. That's not ideal. They scored half of their points on off of our turnovers and second chance points.
What did you make of DeMar DeRozan's performance tonight? He tends to go for the pump fakes, but what did you think of his game?
He did great, and especially like when the game was on the line in most crucial moments, he's not shying from those moments. He did a good job. We needed to be more disciplined, not going for pump fakes and his rip-through moves, but it'll be better next time.
Scotty, how would you describe a game that seemed as wild and chaotic from our vantage point like that?
It was a game that was just going back and forth. We started off really good. They came back in it. We came back. It was just a game that was going back and forth. Just had the game. Couldn't really finish it out. Went to overtime and they banged a big three down the stretch. Missed free throws and I turned the ball over a lot. Just couldn't finish the game at the end. It's really what happened and what went down.
At this point, obviously it's really early into the season. Obviously, it's nice to win every single game, but losses are expected. How do you kind of, take your team and flush it down? Because you guys have a big game tomorrow.
But that's just the main thing. We have one tomorrow, so just go out there, play hard, and just try to win that one. This one hurts, but, just got to move on to the next game and go out there and compete every single night. Do the main goal that we always try to do is go out there and win.
What did you see from your teammates tonight in terms of level of compete when you guys were out there?
We competed throughout the whole game. Basketball's a game of runs. We competed throughout the whole game. We stayed in it together. We stayed together. Just didn't finish this one out.
For you personally, Scotty, a triple-double. What did you like about your game despite not getting the outcome that you wanted?
Just wanted to win. That's all it was. Turned the ball over too much. Couldn't finish out the game. Jumped on the pump fake. Didn't win the game, Don't really matter about my individual stuff, just try to go out there and win every single game. And that was a huge part why we didn't win. Take that blame on that. Turned the ball over a couple times late throughout the game, jumping on pump fakes. Just got to finish the game out.
What did you see from Chris today?
Chris came in and gave us that spark, Chris can always come in and play with a lot of energy, help us out a lot, coming off the bench and just being that spark plug, being able to contest shots, ultimate at the rim, run in transition, finish baskets. He was huge for us tonight. Energy-wise, playing hard, rim protection. He was amazing for us.
That hurts, man. I don't know if someone can send this to him. I know a lot of people who know him watch this, so just let him know this game was not on him. Yeah, he made like a couple of mistakes for sure, but like, bro, this is who he is. Like, this is who he's always been. Like, remember him when he was 17 years old, and like after a loss, like you see him, like it hurts him to lose. Different schools of thought on this. Next play mentality, blah 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 blah. Bro, trust me, if losses hurt you, especially losses like this where you had it, something that the media didn't make anything of, and I kind of worried if I should make something of it and how it might impact him if I talk too much about it. He didn't stick around to shake hands after the Raptors were eliminated from the playoffs in year one. He just left, and people were just shaking their hands and, hey, see you around, let's go grab dinner, whatever. He just left. And when he was asked about it, he just did his typical Scotty Barnes thing. He's like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I watched a lot of great players in my life. Watched Isaiah Thomas, watched Michael Jordan, watched Drazen Petrovic. And the ones I wasn't alive to watch, I watched them too. They're all like this. They're all like this. They hate losing, can't stand losing, and you want to steer clear of them if you're in a locker room after they lose because they will let you know about it. I like that he takes personal accountability. It's not something we've seen a lot of around Raptorland the last couple of years. This was a he who shall not be named post game. He'd be coming out saying, we did this wrong. Young guys did this, blah, 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 blah. This loss is totally not his fault. But you love to see a player take accountability. I turned the ball over. Yes, you did, sir. And there were a couple of really loose passes, and you know it. And he knew it when it happened because he was stomping his foot at how the hell did I do that? And yeah, you shouldn't have jumped on that pump fake. But bro, like, you got teammates who are not boxing out. You got teammates who are not rotating. You have teammates that you are literally telling the play that the other team is running 3 passes before they're running it. And your teammate is just not moving to the corner. You can't move their fucking legs for them, bro. So I hope that Scotty, washes this one off, goes home, walks Carty, and gets ready for tomorrow against the Sixers and breathe hellfire, bro, on the Philadelphia 76ers and Nick Nurse. Let them know who you are, let them know whose house they're in, and let them know this is not going to be a cakewalk anymore. Y'all remember that Charles Barkley quote about Angola? Y'all remember Angola? Where Charles Barkley is asked about Angola when he's with the Dream Team. And they're like, what are you going to do preparing for Angola? And he says, I don't know anything about Angola, but Angola's in trouble. Bro, I don't know who's guarding Scotty Barnes tomorrow, but this is just a word to that person. You're in trouble. I don't know who you are. Prepare yourself for a very long night. All right. Mohammed Hassan, final caller. You got 4 minutes. What up, bro?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, like everybody else, and I was frustrated about the game. And one thing I really don't like about this team, I don't like the starting lineup. I think the starting lineup just doesn't have enough spacing. And I know Darko, he thinks a lot about Dennis, but I don't know. Something's just not right with the starting lineup. There's not enough spacing, and something has to change. I don't know. What do you think?
100% agree with you. I don't think I like it either. The alternative, my suggestion was, try Gary and Precious in the starting lineup because you have an abundance of basketball IQ with Scotty and OG, at least to some extent, in the starting lineup. But then, yeah, watching Precious, would he pick up fouls like within a minute or 2 minutes? Would he, do so? I don't know. I think I would try Gary and Precious in the starting lineup in place of Dennis and Jakob. But obviously, this is a very big decision to make within your locker room. And sometimes it helps. The Boston Celtics, they had 6 players, all of whom deserve to start. They could have gone either which way. And they had a players meeting between those 6 players, and they made that determination so that their coach didn't have to. And I think the Raptors have to do something similar, where they have to say, okay, Jakob, we love you. You're definitely our best center. But with that starting lineup, the spacing is atrocious. We need a cutter. We need a slasher like Precious. Same thing with Dennis. We love you. Welcome to the team. You're a very welcome presence. And, you hit big shots, and maybe you close out every single game this year. But for the starting lineup to really work, Scotty needs to be the point, and Gary needs to be a shot maker for the spacing. Again, you need to consider the critical mass argument of shooting, spacing, defense. I have, however, been very encouraged by the defensive effort of the starting units. They have started out games well. And if you're breaking down the tape, you're like, well, we started out hot and we started out the second half hot. So how are you going to make an adjustment to the one lineup that seemed to work, right?
Yeah,
I think the problem is, like, if that lineup works, then what happens to the lineup that comes in to relieve them? It's a problem that becomes an issue later down, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. The one trade I've been looking at is I don't know if San Antonio would accept it. Is what do you think about Boucher for Doug McDermott? I think Doug would give us that 3-point spacing, and I personally wouldn't mind seeing Doug and Dick on the floor at the same time, because you have a 3-point sniper in McDermott, and then you have a 3-point sniper in Dick. So it would actually help Dick. It would help open him up more, maybe not as much defensive pressure on him. What do you think about that? Would you do that trade, Boucher for McDermott?
Feels like you're maybe. I think Otto's better than Doug McDermott, and you already have him. And if he's healthy, I would rather just play him and see what happens there. I think you have to look at it from an asset value perspective. Chris Boucher does not have a tremendous amount of value around this league. He doesn't have negative value. I'm certainly sure some team could definitely use him, and in the right fit, in the right situation, he might even be a starter for certain teams. So, I'm certainly happy to see him get minutes. I don't think he was the problem tonight, though. Just personally, I don't think he's the problem. I think the problem is really the combination of guys you're playing, how much they're playing, and who they're playing with. I think if a computer, like a super genius computer, could construct proper lineup optimization, you have the pieces right now to be a 45-win team with this team. I think you do. But if you consistently play the wrong people at the wrong times, and they keep making the wrong play at the wrong time and passing to the wrong guy at the wrong time, and the offense is wrong and the defense is wrong, and you're gambling, it's not going to work. You'll win 30 games. So, yeah. Anyways, any final thoughts? And who's your player of the game? I'm just curious.
Me, Scotty Barnes. I just got 2 more things to say before I leave.
Sure.
Yeah, Scotty was my player of the game, but personally, I don't understand why Siakam took the last shot. I would have gave it to Barnes, honestly. I would have gave it to Barnes. And another thing is, the next game against Philadelphia, we have to bring everything, because Nick Nurse is going to try to come in there and rub it in our face and everything like that. And the guys, they got to lock down defensively, and they have to hit their shots, and that's going to be a big game, because Nurse has a big ego, and he's going to try to stick it in our face.
He does, and he knows this roster really well. And if there's any one coach that can give Pascal Siakam the worst night of his life, it is probably Nurse. And they have long defenders. They have the personnel to shut the water off on certain guys on this team. I'm curious what Darko Rakovic is going to counter with. I've been very impressed with him as a person. So far, however, as a tactician, knowing when to call timeouts, knowing when to make adjustments, I've been a little bit 50-50 on him so far. So I'm looking forward also to that continuing to get better. A, he's a very young coach. B, he may not have necessarily the relationship with these guys to make tough calls right now. And he may also have a grander vision in terms of how to delicately approach certain things. I know he's seeing Malachi struggle the same way I am, but he and I may have a completely different approach on how to tackle that problem. So the problem is, are you seeing the same problems that we're all seeing? Probably you're seeing 20 problems we're not seeing, plus all the problems we're seeing. Now, are you able to come up with a solution based on the problem that you're witnessing? Or are you just going to sit and pray that it's going to get better? Or are you going to make tough decisions? These types of things. And are you being enabled by your front office to make tough decisions? Because I think this is a very important factor
that we don't often consider. This is not high school basketball. It's not AAU basketball. Coach is not God. Okay. He cannot just simply say, okay, well, out of nowhere, I don't like how Pascal Siakam's playing, so I'm going to bench him for the fourth quarter. Like it's very difficult for him to make that type of assessment given the level of tenure A, he has, and B, the level of relationship he has with Siakam at this point, right? I mean, this could be a strain on the relationship, but the way the Toronto media talks about it, if you bench Siakam or you don't take the final shot with Siakam and it doesn't go in, like let's say you do give the ball to Barnes. You wanted the ball to go to Scotty. I would have preferred the ball go to Gary personally, or Dennis Schroeder or Scotty. I would be fine with anyone but the guy who got it. It was literally my last choice would be to put the ball in Pascal's hands. But let's say you do put the ball in Scotty's hand and he misses. It'd be the same fucking argument. People being like, why didn't it go to Siakam? If you put the ball into Gary's hands and he misses, it's the same narrative. Why didn't you give it to one of your better players? So it's just, are they not the dogs? You know? So it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you lose, you're always going to have tough questions. Always tough questions. Right?
Yeah.
When you win, like if this one thing goes, if that Alex Caruso 3 clanks out, we're having a completely different discussion. And the funny thing is, we on this channel would not be having a different discussion. Our discussion is the same, win or loss. Like it's going to be the same. The game I watched, it doesn't matter. The Alex Caruso 3 goes in or not. You still blew the lead in the fourth quarter. You still ended up in overtime in a game you had no business losing. And the Bulls fucked up. It's not like they played perfect basketball. They had missed free throws, missed rotations. They had miscommunications on defense. They screwed up in transition defense a couple times. They had a turnover. They made so many mistakes too. So this was like such a chaotic game in that sense. It's so frustrating to watch because it's such a winnable one. And you know, this is the thing. Like my frustration level at the end of this game was like sky high. And God help me, if I had not cashed out of those parlays, it would have been like next level. I'm very happy I did. But I will tell you, like, as someone who understands the game pretty well, I can only imagine how much someone who understands the game at like Super Saiyan levels, like Scotty, would be feeling about this type of loss, because he can see what I'm seeing times 10. He knows this is so winnable. And they fucked up. So yeah.
No doubt about it. And I know Masai is definitely pissed. He's definitely pissed about this loss. I just got one quick thought before I go. Would you want to see Matt? Would you want to see Toronto get Matt Thomas back? Like, would you give him a second option this time with under Darko's leadership?
No.
Oh, okay. All right, man. Anyway, good night. I'll talk to you hopefully tomorrow. Tomorrow's after tomorrow's game.
Cheers, man. Take care. Right. Bye bye. I feel bad for Scotty. I mean, like, I'm still. Yeah. You know, you watch a player from this early stage grow up, you have a lot vested in him. You feel proud of him, like when he does well. You feel sad for him when he suffers, when he's injured. Like, I don't know. Like I felt really terribly for him. You can't say like there's an emotional investment in most players on this team. I like them as players. It's a purely analytical, thought process. I have no hate for Malachi Flynn. I have no hate for Precious Achiuwa. They're just players on a team that I really like. But yeah, I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is, like, with Scotty, it hits different, and I think for a lot of people, it has become the case. I mean, some of you are saying like, damn, like tears, I feel so bad for the guy. That's exactly it, right? Like, you feel bad for him because there must be like some sort of emotional investment. And I think people have that with their superstars. I think people have that with superstars, and that's probably what makes superstars so special. And that's probably why people burn their jerseys when they leave. Nobody burned Fred VanVleet's jersey when he left, right? There wasn't that level. And this concept of what sports is, it's not just a mind-numbing distraction, of yeah. Sorry, someone's saying real. Yeah, it's just like, how hard he took this. You know what I mean? Like, I think you can't think this one out. You got to feel this one out, Yeah, some people are going to troll him. 7 turnovers. Ha ha ha. I thought you were a point guard. You're not really a point guard. You're not watching the fucking game, bro. Like, I mean, his minutes at point were great. They really were. They were solid. Yeah. Anyways, let's end this live. Thank you all for joining. There's 400 of you at one point. That's fucking awesome. After a tough loss. I hope this wasn't too much of a bummer for you. We're trying to keep it real. We hope that we can keep it honest. Keep it honest. Keep it honest and real, whatever it is, good, bad, or different, right? And not become hype boys and not become haters. You know what I mean? Like, we're not trying to run Pascal Siakam out of town. We're not trying to, suggest like Malachi Flynn should be waived or anything like that. I mean, maybe I am suggesting Malachi Flynn should be waived. But it's not with malice or ill intent. It's trying to be as purely analytical as possible, right? So again, trying to keep it real, and hopefully, and I was listening to a message by Arnold Schwarzenegger today about the Israel-Palestine issue, and specifically it gets into the concept of hate and how no movement based on hate can ever be successful. And I believe that to be 100% true. I've always believed that. So, we all have different ways that we want to be fans. After a tough loss, maybe you want to come in and listen to somebody only complain about the referees and the league being biased against you. But that wouldn't be true. Yes, the referees were terrible. We addressed it. We talked about it. But that wouldn't be the complete truth. This was a self-implosion of a young team that is very inexperienced at playing with each other. So this is not doomsday. The sky is falling. The Raptors are going to be bad this year. This is not that message. And please don't take away from that. What this is a cautionary note that you don't have a lot of wiggle room when you're not talented enough. You see, if the Philadelphia 76ers get off to a slow start because of the James Harden, debacle and everything that's going on there, still have an MVP level player in Joel Embiid, who can probably carry you to 20 wins in his sleep, right? You don't have that type of player on this team. Not Scotty, not Pascal. No one on this team is that good. And so you got to win the ones you're supposed to win, especially the ones that you're winning. The Chicago Bulls on the road, let's say that's not a easy win. Okay. It might be a game you think you're supposed to win. It's not an easy win. A lot of teams have the Chicago Bulls projected at 32, 33 wins, but some teams have, some analysts have them projected to win 45 games. And the road team is almost always at a slight disadvantage in most situations, especially when you lose O.G Anunoby and you go to overtime down OG and Yak. And honestly, last game, I can make a very clear case data-wise that OG, Yak, and Dennis Schroeder were your three best players. And in this game, I can make a very good case that OG, Yak, and Scotty were your best three players. So you're missing two of your better players, two starters, two guys who would definitely be on the court. And the way that you're getting beat, rotations, three-pointers, box out assignments, are exactly the issues that those players would have solved. So you make a very good case that of those two players on the court, you don't lose this game. And you're 2-0. You're 2-0 against two solid teams. Bad news for you, man. If you haven't watched my NBA preview, definitely go check that out. 100%. I'm proud of some lives. I'm really proud of that live. I think I got I don't want to say really proud. I don't want to hype it up or whatever. It's a good live though. It doesn't have a ton of views because I did it at a weird time in the afternoon, didn't talk about it too much. Or maybe I didn't advertise it correctly. The graphic is OG and Scotty, and then the thing is NBA previews. So maybe, the YouTube algorithm just screwed up on that, but it's one of the better lives for sure. All right. RK 81-1. My prediction for this team, let me pull it up actually for those of you who did not see it. This is my standings prediction on the Eastern and Western Conference. So this is where I have the Raptors finishing, and I'm probably unusually high on the Magic. And this is my awards prediction, and this is my all rookie teams, and these are my all NBA teams, just for those of you who are not going to go check the other live. So yeah, those are my predictions locked in. I'm ready to be wrong again, because I'm definitely going to be wrong about this, and Zion's probably going to miss half the season, and it's going to just screw everything up. But I have hope in certain young teams: the Indiana Pacers, the Magic, the Raptors, the Thunder, the Pelicans. Those are the teams that I think could make a jump
And, I clearly don't have faith in certain older teams aging out. We're on the precipice of something interesting in the NBA, which is we're on the there are no easy games schedule, right? Every team can win. There's 3 bad teams maybe in the entire league right now, and one of them is okay. So it's not easy. And later on in the season, the interesting thing is I think certain teams are going to start shutting down guys later, because there are very talented teams right now that are going to fall back in the standings like 2-10, 2-12, and they're going to realize that they blew too many opportunities too early, and they're just too late, and they're going to start stripping down. They're going to start trading assets. They're going to maybe start moving guys or resting guys or shutting guys down for the season to tank. I don't know why you would tank for this draft, but nevertheless, you might catch some teams that you think are pretty decent right now towards the end of the season when you are trying to be competitive because you don't have a draft pick, no incentive to lose. But in the beginning of the season, you definitely don't want to dig a hole. So I think it is very important, and I've said this many times, that the Raptors stay around 500 at minimum. And guess where they are right now? They're at 500. Sky's not falling. We're fine. Darko Rakovic, adjust your fucking rotations, man. 2 games in a row. Not good. Peace, guys. Exactly. They do. Cheers, guys.